Mourners gather at a somber church service under darkening skies.
A white-haired woman in black arrives, heralded as a wicked figure.
Cruel rumors follow Diana as she passes whispering socialites. Behind a dark veil, Diana's red eyes betray hidden sorrow. She kneels alone before the altar, far from the judgmental crowd.
Diana prays to join Lord Casper once her final duty is complete.
Albert unexpectedly pulls Diana into a desperate, sunlight-drenched embrace.
He commands her to be ready for the coming changes.
Diana pleads for him to reconsider his startling declaration.
Albert confesses his love, leaving no room for her doubt.
Stunned and blushing, Diana's composure shatters at his words.
She realizes Albert's cold, stern demeanor has completely melted away.
Overwhelmed by emotion, Diana struggles to find her voice.
The scene shifts to the grand house of Fiancé estate.
Collie, the brown-haired maid, greets her mistress with a bright smile.
Diana finds a moment of peace among the blooming garden flowers.
As Collie brushes her hair, she speaks of Casper's grandson's arrival.
Diana recalls the tragic history of Casper's lost son, Fritz.
A terrible disaster and a carriage accident claim Lord Casper's life.
Lord Fritz and his wife also perished, leaving only one heir.
Diana resolves to be gentle with the arriving young lord.
She closes her eyes, preparing herself for the meeting.
Memories of her childhood marriage and the wicked label resurface. Collie vows to remain a strict but loyal companion to her.
Diana cherishes the memory of Lord Casper's kind paternal guidance.
The household gathers outside as a black carriage pulls up. Albert steps out, his blonde hair catching the afternoon light.
Diana watches him closely, noting his sharp and handsome features. She remembers the warmth Casper showed her when she was small.
The staff welcomes Albert as the house's new presiding head. Albert regards the late Marquis's wife with a calculating gaze.
He introduces Mia, the blonde woman standing closely by his side.
Mia recounts the malicious rumors surrounding Diana's supposed dark past.
Albert scolds Mia for her rudeness before discussing the rumors privately.
Mia offers a hollow apology as they walk toward the mansion.
Diana hopes Albert will be a fair judge of her character. She plans to leave the estate once everything is settled.
A new day begins at the Fiancé mansion with high stakes. Witnesses gather to hear the formal reveal of Lord Casper's will.
Legal diagrams outline the strict bloodline requirements for the massive inheritance.
Diana startles Mia in the hallway, asking if she is lost.
Mia makes clumsy excuses, appearing as harmless as a kitten.
She bluntly asks Diana about her marriage to an older man.
Diana simply remembers Lord Casper as a truly kind person. The butler watches as the two women converse in the hall.
Diana and Mia walk together toward the inheritance meeting.
Mia boldly claims her status as Albert's lover to the witnesses.
A red-haired man waits patiently on a sofa within the parlor. Thomas, the official executor, prepares to begin the legal proceedings.
He introduces himself as a lawyer dispatched to handle the estate.
Diana is caught off guard as Albert approaches her with a piercing, intense gaze.
Albert's expression remains cold and unyielding as he stares down the late Marquis's wife. Thomas observes the tension, noting that Albert's glare is sharp enough to pierce Diana.
A silent battle of wills ensues between the angry young lord and the solemn Diana.
The official executor prepares to reveal the shocking terms of Lord Casper's final will.
Tension rises as the gathered heirs await the announcement that will shatter their family ties.
Diana sits stoically while the lawyer narrates the looming chaos facing the house of Fiancé.
The will mandates a one-year marriage to Diana as a condition for Albert's inheritance.
Detailed legal requirements demand they cohabitate and maintain public appearances as a married couple.
Failure to fulfill the marriage terms will result in the entire estate returning to the state.
A heavy silence falls over the parlor as the room absorbs the impossible inheritance terms.
A loud bang sounds as Mia slams her hand down, outraged by the legal exclusion. Thomas reminds the blonde woman that he warned her she would have to yield. Albert listens in dark silence as Thomas notes the luck of his new marital arrangement. Overwhelmed by the legal twist, Mia hides her face and cries out in disbelief. Diana calmly accepts the burden, declaring her intent to honor Casper's last wishes.
A sudden, loud scrape echoes through the room as Albert stands up in a rage.
Addressing her coldly by name, Albert confronts Diana with a look of pure disdain.
He calls her a vile woman, accusing her of preying on his late grandfather.
The parlor becomes a stage for Albert's accusations as he lashes out at Diana's character.
Albert claims Diana's apparent selflessness was merely a trick to secure the family's wealth.
Diana remains silent as he accuses her of plotting to seize the inheritance for herself.
Albert suddenly seizes Diana's chin, his grip rough and full of underlying hostility.
He mockingly admits her beauty as legendary while expressing his utter disgust for her.
He cruelly asks if he should address her as his grandmother or his wife.
Albert scoffs at her composure, labeling her the wicked woman from the social rumors.
Mia glares with intense jealousy, reaffirming her own position as Albert's lover.
Albert leaves Diana behind, his body language signaling his total rejection of her.
He commands Mia to follow him, walking away without a backward glance at Diana.
The butler tries to intervene, pleading for Albert to stay and discuss the matters.
Thomas watches Diana with interest as she sits alone amidst the fading parlor light.
Thomas questions Diana about her hidden motives, standing over her with a curious expression. He leans in, demanding that she show some sincerity regarding her role now. A rustling sound accompanies Thomas as he hands Diana a small, cryptic mook.
The red-haired lawyer smiles knowingly while holding the secret piece of paper.
Diana dreams of peaceful days in sun-drenched fields, longing for a life without labels.
She feels the weight of her bad reputation, seeing herself as a stain on the family. Diana reflects on Lord Casper's trust and her duty to mentor the young Albert. Albert's suspicious gaze burns into Diana, showing his deep resentment of the marriage. He continues his rough interrogation, questioning why she rashly agreed to the will's terms. Diana touches the bruise on her neck, resolving to endure for the sake of Casper's kindness. She vows to earn Albert's trust, standing tall despite the dark shadows surrounding her. Looking through the window, Diana finds strength in her quiet devotion to her late husband.
Collie gasps in horror at the dark, ugly mark left on Diana's pale neck.
Diana tries to downplay the injury, but the maid blames Albert's insolence for the pain.
Collie rants about the selfishness of the house's new arrivals, championing her mistress's dignity.
Mia acts as if the lack of immediate tea service is a literal war crime.
Diana prepares to face the day, her red eyes reflecting both weariness and resolve. Collie helps Diana into her gown, promising that the late Marquis will be repaid. Immersed in routine, Diana handles the mansion's official business, as she has since Casper's illness. Collie aggressively encourages Tobias to use his charms to win over the young master.
Tobias apologizes to Lady Diana, explaining his attempt to shield Albert from malicious social rumors.
The brown-haired man insists to the suspicious Collie that he finds her far more attractive. As the servants bicker loudly around her, Diana remains remarkably calm while finishing her tea. Diana kindly requests that Tobias stop exhausting himself by trying to mediate the household's internal conflicts. A warm memory surfaces of Lord Casper gently guiding a much younger Diana through the garden. Standing alone by the window, Diana whispers a somber, private prayer to her late husband's memory. The gray-haired butler reports that Albert has signed the papers scheduling the wedding for next week. Diana stoically accepts the news while her loyal maid Collie reacts with visible, wide-eyed shock. Mia makes exorbitant financial demands, leaving the butler flustered by the household's strictly frozen budget. Heavy chains and locks symbolize the late Marquis's massive fortune being legally frozen for 1 year. Albert looks on with a cold, protective intensity as his blonde mistress clings to his chest.
The blonde woman lashes out at Diana, accusing her of plotting to force her away.
Albert demands to know why Diana is treating his lover so poorly in front of others. Diana realizes her attempt to manage the estate's budget has been misinterpreted as a personal attack. Bowing deeply, Diana agrees to Mia's demands, unaware of the mistress's triumphant and wicked smirk. Albert questions the low budget, while Mia continues her manipulative and clingy display of affection. He berates Diana's priorities, accusing her of spending on trifles while neglecting the family's needs. Mia celebrates her victory with a hug, leaving Diana to watch their intimacy in silence. Tobias walks beside Diana, becoming flustered as she mentions their impending, duty-bound wedding day. Diana reflects on her reputation as a villainess who separates lovers for the sake of money. The brown-haired man blushes furiously as Diana questions the true intent behind his stuttered words. She catches him off guard by bluntly asking if he is aware of the wedding night ritual. Diana ponders the strange requirements of the ceremony while remembering Albert's intense devotion to Mia. Albert's gaze remains sharp and unyielding as the day of the unwanted union finally arrives. Sunlight bathes the grand chapel as the formal wedding day for the House of Fleisefen begins. A sudden, loud bang echoes as Mia bursts in, spitefully declaring that Albert hates Diana. Diana calmly agrees with her rival, stating that Mia is clearly the one Albert truly loves. A heavy, echoing thud follows Mia's departure, leaving Diana and her worried maid in silence. Lord Kidman escorts the white-haired bride down the aisle, fulfilling his final promise to Casper. The procession reaches the altar where Albert waits with a look of stern and silent resignation. Diana mourns her late husband, wishing Casper could have seen his grandson reach this milestone. A single tear falls as Albert takes Diana's hand to begin their public life together. A sharp, painful escapes as Albert's grip tightens with a look of pure, concentrated disdain. He whispers a cruel warning, telling Diana that her tears will never find happiness in this marriage. They walk out as a married couple, Albert blushing with hidden frustration while Diana remains stoic.
The Grand Chapel stands as a silent witness to a union built on duty rather than love.
Thomas, the red-haired executor, explains that the government is monitoring the transition of family assets.
The new couple sits in formal silence as the legal registration of their marriage is finalized.
A sudden, loud scrape sounds as Thomas stands, reminding them the wedding is only the beginning.
The lawyer announces his intention to stay the night, much to Albert's visible and silent annoyance.
Kali excitedly points out Albert's blushing face, though Diana interprets his reaction as mere simmering rage.
Diana trusts the brown-haired maid completely, knowing she is the only one who understands her.
While bathing, Diana recalls Albert's rough touch and realizes she didn't find his hostility frightening.
She finds a strange sense of resolve in the warm water, preparing for the night ahead.
A soft, rhythmic creak sounds as Diana opens the door, entering the bedroom in a black nightgown.
Her eyes reflect a quiet strength as she prepares to fulfill the final terms of the will. Hearing a sudden movement behind her, Diana turns toward the doorway with a questioning, soft inquiry.
A sharp, metallic squeak sounds as the door opens further, revealing Albert wearing only a robe.
Diana stands stoically before Albert, her gaze unwavering as she begins their private confrontation.
A heavy thud sounds as Albert slumps in his chair, smelling strongly of alcohol.
Albert coldly declares his total lack of interest in listening to anything Diana has to say.
Leaning forward with intense focus, Diana insists that her message is of critical importance.
A sudden, sharp thud echoes as Diana commands the startled Albert to sit and listen.
Diana mentions her support for his relationship, while Albert finds her words completely contradictory.
She admits her embarrassment over finally understanding the true implications of sharing a bedroom.
Albert frantically gestures for her to stop, desperate to avoid hearing any further details.
Sucking in a nervous breath, Albert claims he lacks any romantic feelings for Diana himself. A sudden, wet splat sounds as Albert chokes on his tea, labeling Diana a wicked woman.
Diana explains the traditional blood on sheets ritual, leaving Albert in a state of visible distress.
A heavy, expectant silence falls as Albert looms over Diana on the edge of the bed.
Albert reveals he annulled the marriage paperwork, determined to prove their union is a farce.
Diana remembers Casper's kind advice to use the annulment only for her true love.
Thomas, the red-haired executor, remains a cold presence in Diana's memories of legal obligations.
Albert panics and shouts for her to wait as Diana requests his immediate cooperation.
Shocked by her determination, Albert watches as Diana prepares to take a drastic step forward.
A soft, rhythmic creak sounds as Diana sits on the bed, regretting her lack of preparation.
Albert hides his blushing face while Diana reveals the numerous scars covering her pale thighs.
A sickening, wet slice sounds as Diana uses a small knife to cut her own leg.
Albert stares in pure, unadulterated horror as blood begins to bloom on Diana's skin.
A sudden, sharp slap sounds as Albert grabs Diana's hand, outraged by her self-inflicted injury. He frantically calls for a maid while Diana desperately pleads for him to stop.
Diana reaches up to touch Albert's face, trying to calm his explosive panic and worry.
Albert blushes intensely as the white-haired woman gently reassures him that she is all right.
A soft, sliding sound accompanies Diana as she insists she can treat the wound herself.
Albert looks away in shame, admitting he might have caused a deeper wound if he helped.
Albert stands over the kneeling Diana, the room filled with an oppressive and somber atmosphere.
Diana explains the blood is necessary proof for Thomas that they spent the night together.
Albert feels deeply pathetic for mistakenly believing Diana was making a romantic advance toward him. A sharp, rhythmic creak sounds as Albert clenches his fist, wishing she'd hurt him instead.
He asks if it hurts, but Diana stoically claims she doesn't feel much physical pain.
Albert gazes at the many scars on her arm, wondering about the source of her trauma.
Albert blushingly bandages Diana's leg while she notes that commoners rarely afford medical help. Albert watches Diana's reflection in the mirror, his gaze filled with a new, complex intensity.
Albert questions Diana about her broken emotions, demanding to know the truth of her past.
Diana explains that a childhood event left her unable to feel normal levels of pain.
Holding the knife with a blank expression, she calmly asks Albert if he'd like to test her.
A soft, sliding sound echoes as Diana points to the spot where a person feels most pain.
Albert reacts with visible horror and disgust at the sight of her extensively scarred skin.
Diana fiercely defends Lord Casper, shouting that he would never have intentionally harmed her.
She insists the late Marquis always treated her with kindness despite her visible physical scars.
A grainy, monochrome memory surfaces of a kind man embracing a young, weeping, silver-haired girl.
Diana asserts with absolute conviction that Casper never hurt her a single time.
Albert remains in a state of silent shock, the weight of Diana's words hanging between them. He asks with a wounded look if she'd truly thought he was capable of hurting her.
Diana falters, realizing her defensive words have accidentally insulted Albert's sense of honor.
Albert angrily declares that he will not tolerate such a character insult ever again.
Lowering her eyes in regret, Diana offers a soft apology for her unintentional disrespect.
Albert turns away from Diana, his silhouette signaling a deepening divide as the night ends.
Albert stares at the silver-haired woman, internally questioning her true identity and nature. Standing before Diana in his robe, the brown-haired man appears visibly flustered and sweating. Albert closes his eyes in regret, wishing he had never approached the house of Fleisefen. The scene shifts to Albert's quiet childhood home, a remote village surviving on simple forestry. Young Albert looks up from his book as a brown-haired girl bids him a cheerful farewell. The young boy watches with quiet longing as another child runs to hug his grandfather. A sharp metallic clink sounds as Albert's mother startles him by suddenly calling his name. Grabbing his shoulders, the brown-haired woman desperately warns Albert to never go near that house.
Albert recalls the unprecedented look of sheer terror and stress on his mother's pale face.
Panicked villagers scream about an earthquake and landslide as young Albert clings to his parents.
Beside a crackling campfire, Albert's mother vehemently rejects the idea of asking the Marquis for help.
Fritz argues they are in no position to refuse aid, despite his wife's deep-seated hatred.
The woman suggests seeking help from her distant aunt instead of returning to the Fleisefen estate.
Tears stream down her face as she pleads with Fritz to avoid his family at all costs.
Adult Albert remembers his mother's desperate pleas as he reflects on his current unwanted path.
Albert's parents prepare to leave, tasking their son with looking after the struggling village residents.
He watches in silence as his parents depart on foot to seek help for their people.
Villagers shout that something terrible has happened, drawing a frantic Albert toward the village center.
Albert's eyes widen in shock upon hearing that bandits brutally attacked his defenseless parents.
An envoy from Fleisefen arrives days too late as Albert kneels beside two covered bodies.
Now dressed as a noble, Albert boards a carriage, bitter that help arrived only after tragedy. A dark, swirling hatred consumes Albert as he blames his grandfather for his parents' deaths.
A sharp, rhythmic creak sounds as Albert clenches his fist, determined to secure money for the village.
Standing before the wreckage, Albert promises the hopeful villagers that he will save their home. The survivors look on with desperate hope, trusting Albert to help them endure the aftermath.
Mia, the blonde woman, greets Albert with a bright smile, surprised to see him again.
The blonde-haired girl mentions hearing that Albert had entered the service of a wealthy noble family.
Mia asks to stay with him, labeling Diana a wicked woman while claiming a suspicious man is following her.
Winking playfully, Mia suggests pretending to be his girlfriend to ward off the wicked Marchesness.
The grand Fleisefen carriage travels down a winding road, carrying the weight of Albert's hidden vendetta.
A sudden, soft gasp escapes as Albert catches his first glimpse of the ethereal, silver-haired woman.
He is momentarily stunned by Diana's beauty, thinking she looks like a delicate, otherworldly fairy.
Albert reminds himself that this woman is his grandfather's wife and a notorious wicked villainess.
Thomas discusses rumors of Diana seducing the old Marquis, fueling Albert's growing resentment and suspicion.
Lord Kidman defends Diana's honor, sparking a tense and mocking exchange with the red-haired executor.
Albert glares with cold intensity, wondering if both Kidman and his grandfather were merely Diana's puppets.
He watches Diana from behind, his gaze fixed on the woman he blames for his family's misfortune.
Albert aggressively grips Diana's chin, his hatred overriding any momentary admiration for her pale beauty.
A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as Albert demands to know why so little money reached his village.
Kidman explains the legal freeze on assets, leaving the frustrated Albert unable to move the fortune.
Diana bows deeply to the couple, submissively agreeing to meet Mia's exorbitant financial and personal demands.
Alone and defeated, Albert vows to crush the House of Fleisefen once he gains his inheritance. He questions his presence in the estate, feeling he has betrayed his mother's final, desperate wishes.
Diana walks away as a single tear falls, but Albert remains convinced she is a witch.
Albert watches her with a blush of frustration, annoyed that her tears could still bewitch him.
Closing his eyes, the brown-haired man struggles against the strange, unwanted pull of Diana's mournful presence.
Albert commands Diana to raise her head, his tone softened as they sit together in silence.
Diana looks up with a stoic expression, her red eyes reflecting a deep and hidden sorrow.
Albert observes her closely, noting she looks like a child trying to gauge an adult's mood.
Diana looks ahead with quiet resolve, reminding Albert that their long wedding night has only begun. Sitting together, Albert suggests they use their wedding night effectively to handle estate matters.
The scene shifts outside the window, where the two remain locked in a quiet conversation.
Albert looks at Diana with a serious expression and agrees to her pragmatic proposal.
Later, Thomas inspects the blood-stained cloth, surprised that Diana provided proof of the wedding night. Thomas remains skeptical, but officially approves the execution of the will's bedroom-related clauses.
Diana bows respectfully to the red-haired executor, expressing her readiness to begin their work. A soft, relieved breath accompanies Diana as she exhales a quiet whew after the encounter.
Albert watches Diana with a sharp, calculating gaze, his thoughts hidden behind his blue eyes.
The pair sits at a round table to study the domain's geopolitics and welfare together.
Throughout the night, they remain dedicated to learning the intricacies of managing the Fleisofen estate.
Albert recalls that his father provided him with the education required of a high-ranking nobleman.
Under a bright full moon, Albert points to a passage in the book while Diana listens. Diana walks through the quiet mansion alone, holding a heavy book tightly against her chest.
A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as the blonde Mia confronts Albert about Diana's self-inflicted injury. Diana pauses in the hallway as she hears Mia labeling the white marriage a lie.
Mia asked Albert if he was moved by Diana's performance of being a fragile woman.
Winking playfully, Mia suggests Diana only mention the chaste marriage to capture Albert's full attention.
Albert sits dejectedly as Mia claims a marriage annulment can be easily bought with money.
Mia warns Albert to avoid sleeping with Diana to prevent her from trapping him with pregnancy.
Diana remains stoic in the hall, reflecting on her poor reputation while clutching her book.
A soft, tight squeeze sounds as Diana grips the book, worried about Casper's tarnished honor.
Mia dismisses Albert's potential attraction to the silver-haired woman she considers a dangerous fairy-like creature.
Diana resolves to keep the truth of her past hidden to protect Casper's noble legacy.
A concerned maid approaches Diana, asking if something is deeply troubling her during her walk.
Diana admits she is trying to find a way to ease Lady Mia's growing anxiety.
A sharp, rhythmic crackle sounds as the maid reacts with pure shock to Diana's selflessness.
The maid identifies Marique as the new worker Mia hired to serve her exclusively. Diana explains that Mia needs a trustworthy person who isn't under the Marchioness's direct influence.
The maid grabs Diana's shoulders, frustrated by her lady's tendency to worry about her enemies.
The brown-haired maid shouts, demanding to know why Diana is so concerned with Lady Mia.
Diana calmly reminds the maid that she is the one who will eventually be leaving.
Diana privately hopes Mia understands she has no intention of ever having a child here.
The maid looks on with a sweat-beaded face, unable to comprehend Diana's lack of self-interest.
Diana wonders if having a child would actually make Mia feel more relieved and secure.
She recalls a memory of noble women discussing a medicine from the East that improves fertility.
Diana decides she would like to give that special fertility medicine to Lady Mia. The maid screams in horror, shocked that Diana would help her rival conceive Albert's child.
Diana looks ahead with a blank gaze, genuinely hoping her gift will satisfy Lady Mia.
A rhythmic, metallic clatter sounds as a carriage carrying a black-haired man approaches the residence.
A soft, paper-turning sound accompanies the man as he reads a newspaper inside the carriage.
Adjusting his monocle, the man thinks with anticipation about finally meeting Diana after her marriage. The scene shifts to the grand Fleissen mansion standing prominently behind a lush, green garden.
Bartel van Beek, head of the Viscount Beek family, greets Diana with a charming smile.
Sitting in the parlor, Bartel notes that they have successfully worked together for 5 years.
Bartel discusses their business strategy, noting they have targeted a wealthy market with no rivals.
Diana requests his assistance because she borrowed a large sum for Mia's room renovations.
Bartel looks down in realization, noting she used their joint business rights as loan collateral. He suddenly drops to one knee and takes Diana's hand, his expression filled with intensity.
Bartel passionately declares that he cannot tolerate anyone else having a stake in their shared firm.
Diana stares at her business partner, stunned by the unexpected fervor of his personal declaration.
A sharp, rhythmic thud sounds as Mia bursts into the room, interrupting Diana and Bartel.
Mia points an accusing finger, demanding to know why they are staring into each other's eyes.
The blonde woman shouts her accusations of a secret rendezvous at the composed, silver-haired Diana.
Adjusting his monocle, Bartel calmly clarifies he was merely discussing a business venture with the Marchioness.
Albert places a firm hand on Mia, commanding her to stand down from her aggressive confrontation.
With a cold gaze, Albert questions why Bartel visited the estate without first greeting its head.
A tense, crackling energy fills the air as Albert and the black-haired guest lock eyes.
Bartel explains he postponed the greeting to avoid disturbing Albert's studies as Diana reacts with surprise.
Smiling subtly, the black-haired man adjusts his ornate gemstone necklace while maintaining his elegant, unbothered composure.
Mia stands tall beside Albert, declaring herself the future mistress of the estate in 1 year.
Bartel bows respectfully to the couple, formally introducing himself to the heir and his lover. He mentions his 5-year joint business venture with Diana, leaving Albert looking thoughtful and suspicious.
A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as Albert reluctantly shakes Bartel's hand while Diana watches in silence.
Mia's eyes light up as she recognizes the B Trading Company's reputation for providing luxury goods.
Bartel speaks softly to Diana, sensing her distress and suggesting it may be time to leave.
Looming over Diana, Mia demands she hand over the business rights and profits as her duty.
Bartel closes his eyes with a knowing smile while Diana looks on with a troubled expression.
Mia shouts that Diana is acting ridiculously by keeping business interests she developed as the Marchioness.
Clutching her chest, the blonde girl asks Diana if she is not ashamed of her greed. Bartel drops to one knee and takes Diana's hand, pledging his unwavering support to the silver-haired lady.
Looking up intensely, Bartel declares he cannot forgive anyone else trying to take their shared business.
Diana closes her eyes, reflecting on her debt and her secret plan to leave this place.
With quiet dignity, Diana stares back at Mia and firmly states she has nothing to be ashamed of.
Mia's face twists with rage, her green eyes flashing at Diana's unexpected and cold defiance.
Facing her rival head-on, the silver-haired woman refuses to surrender the business rights she worked for.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Mia mocks Diana's personal time as an excuse for secret trysts.
Mia declares she has had enough, her frustration boiling over as her brown-haired attendant watches nervously.
Albert stares down at Diana, warning her to avoid any actions that bring shame to the family.
Turning to Bartel, Albert demands he refrain from any behavior that could lead to further misunderstandings.
As the couple departs, Bartel notes their strong personalities and asks about the previous master's will.
Diana confirms the marriage will last only 1 year before she hands her title to Mia.
With a charming smile, Bartel asks if he can return for Diana when her contract ends.
Diana looks at him with a gentle expression as he declares he is counting on her success.
Sitting on the sofa, Albert apologizes to Mia for causing her any unnecessary worry or stress.
Hiding her face, Mia thinks with relief about how easily Albert is manipulated by her act. Mia reflects on her greed, realizing she pushed her demands too hard during the earlier confrontation. Looking down dejectedly, the blonde girl realizes she must be more careful to maintain her innocent facade. A dark, chilling aura surrounds Mia as she thinks about being completely out of other survival options.
Mia remembers being a maid who was fired after her employer's fiancé fell for her charms.
Following her dismissal, she recalls working as a tavern waitress to survive without a recommendation letter.
A rhythmic, metallic clinking sounds as coins fall, reminding Mia of the debt that nearly consumed her. She recalls the terrifying landslide that allowed her to escape her ruthless moneylenders in the chaos. Amidst the ruins, Mia's eyes widen as she spots a noble carriage sent to retrieve Albert. Mia watches the carriage, realizing Albert's noble lineage is her ultimate ticket to a better life.
She remembers being on good terms with the young, outcast Albert while working in his kitchen.
A soft, sinister giggle sounds as Mia decides she has no choice but to follow him.
Mia admits she never intended to marry Albert, preferring older, wealthier men for her personal gain.
Lounging elegantly, Mia resolves to enjoy this wealthy lifestyle until the right time to strike arrives. The maid Marike reminds Mia of her scheduled orphanage visit, prompting her to prepare the donation. Mia steps toward her carriage, determined to perform her role as the future mistress with perfection.
Mia smiles brightly while holding Albert's hands, assuring him she is wonderful with children.
Looking back at Marike, Mia resolves to maintain the facade of a committed couple. High above the garden, Mia plots to exploit Albert's lingering guilt for her own gain.
In the parlor, Mia and Albert face 2 debt collectors demanding repayment for her hidden debts.
Mia looks away in distress as she is told to make do with the limited hands.
Haunted by her past, Mia faces the men who know the truth about her origins.
Mia recalls her former colleagues kneeling before thugs, selling her secrets to reduce their own debts.
A soft, comforting touch from Albert leads Mia to hope this lifestyle will cover her interest.
A sudden, sharp shiver sounds as Mia's face pales with fear over her precarious financial situation.
Mia reassures a business associate that Albert is completely manipulated and will soon pay her debts. Marike reports that Mia and the young Marquis are publicly affectionate, heightening the household's gossip.
Shady associates discuss selling Mia off if she cannot wrap the country-raised boy around her finger.
A man places a hand on Mia's shoulder, mocking the temporary nature of her new title. Biting her nail anxiously, Mia regrets that Diana hasn't surrendered the profitable trading company rights.
A sharp, high-pitched click sounds as Mia's irritation flares over her lack of financial control.
A rhythmic, steady clatter sounds as the sun sets and Mia approaches the grand estate.
Mia paces the room, determined to secure Albert's heart before Diana can exert her influence. Watching Diana from afar, Mia admits her rival's incredible charm is a genuine threat to her plans.
Mia enters the library where the red-haired Thomas waits with an urgent letter for Albert.
Mia's face lights up with a cheerful glow as she greets Thomas with practiced warmth.
Thomas hands her the document, joking about stealing a maid's job just to see her.
Winking playfully, the red-haired man enjoys his secret interaction with the future mistress. Thomas encourages Mia to open the letter immediately, suggesting its contents are of great importance.
Mia's expression turns ghostly pale as she begins to read the unexpected news from the village.
The letter reveals that Diana sent massive aid to Albert's village, eliminating his need for funds.
Terrified, Mia realizes Diana used the Marquis family money to sabotage her leverage over Albert.
Mia fears Albert will abandon the inheritance and her, leaving her with no way to pay debts. Hiding the letter, Mia tries to maintain her composure in front of the observant Thomas.
Sensing her distress, Thomas offers his personal assistance if she finds herself in any trouble.
Meanwhile, Albert excels in his studies, earning the respect of his tutors with his rapid progress.
Diana works diligently at her desk, planning to hand over the estate's duties to Albert soon.
Observing Albert's focus, Diana admires his professionalism despite his clear personal dislike for her.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as their eyes meet, creating a moment of unexpected, intense tension.
Albert looks away, visibly flustered by Diana's gaze while they sit together in silence.
Diana remains focused on her duty to support the man who will carry the Fleisifin legacy.
The silver-haired woman maintains her stoic elegance as she manages the complex affairs of the estate.
Diana reacts with confusion when asked about attending an upcoming social gathering with her husband.
An elderly associate proposes a private ball to introduce the couple to the family's closest allies.
Albert and Diana listen intently as the man emphasizes the importance of their presence at the ball. Diana officially accepts the invitation, agreeing to attend the event alongside the young Marquis.
A gentle, serene smile graces Diana's face as she contemplates her role as the Marquess.
Albert watches his wife closely, his expression a mix of suspicion and growing intrigue.
Albert coldly declares that Mia should not be invited to this exclusive noble event.
The elder agrees, noting that the ball serves to clarify official positions within the high-ranking household.
Diana privately accepts the blow to her reputation if it ensures the success of the transition.
She confirms they will attend as a couple, leaving the blonde Mia behind at the mansion.
Back at her desk, Diana worries if excluding Mia is truly the right course of action. Two young servants complain about being dismissed by the couple as Diana observes from the hallway.
A sharp, energetic shout sounds as the brown-haired maid encourages Diana to keep fighting.
Diana reflects on the daily intimacy between Albert and Mia, feeling increasingly isolated in her duty.
2 weeks later, Diana and her maid prepare as the day of the ball finally arrives.
Albert stands ready in his formal attire, adorned with a brilliant and large blue gemstone.
The silver-haired Diana maintains her composed elegance as she prepares to face the high-ranking nobility.
Diana recalls a warm, glowing memory of a man offering to escort her as his princess.
A single, silent tear escapes Diana's eye as the weight of the moment briefly overcomes her.
Her brown-haired maid quickly and gently dabs away the tear with a clean white handkerchief.
Facing Albert, Diana reminds herself that he is the current heir and not Sir Caspar.
She notes the suit fits him perfectly, ensuring he looks every bit the rightful, noble successor. Albert turns his head away, a faint blush creeping across his cheeks at her rare praise.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Diana steps closer to personally adjust Albert's formal cravat and jewel.
Albert remains visibly flustered and rigid while the silver-haired lady meticulously perfects his formal attire.
Their departure is suddenly interrupted by a frantic, high-pitched shout from the hallway behind them.
Mia bursts through the doors, her pink gown disheveled as she gasps for breath in agitation.
The blonde girl accuses Diana of sabotaging her attendance due to a perceived lack of etiquette.
Mia vents her frustration, demanding to know if Diana enjoys excluding her from such important events.
Albert watches the heated confrontation with a conflicted expression as Diana remains stoically silent and poised.
Turning to his lover, Albert offers a soft, regretful apology for the unfolding and tense situation.
Albert and Diana stand united as they face the distressed blonde girl together in the hallway.
With a calm voice, Diana announces the official decision to postpone Mia's upcoming social debut.
Diana suggests Mia focus on etiquette lessons first, fueling the blonde girl's silent and visible rage.
Mia flees the room in tears, hurling a final, bitter insult at the cold, silver-haired woman.
Albert looks down with a somber expression, expressing his regret for the chaotic and emotional scene.
Diana explains the legalities of inheritance and legitimacy to justify her strict stance on Mia's standing. Plans for fertility drugs are mentioned alongside various dried herbs and medicinal ingredients in a brief transition.
Diana notes that Albert's daily time with Mia makes her careful management a necessary duty. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Albert reacts with intense frustration to Diana's continued meddling.
Albert angrily snaps that his personal affairs are not for Diana to concern herself with anymore.
He storms out of the room, leaving Diana behind as the brown-haired Thomas follows him quickly.
Reflecting on the argument, Diana admits to her maid that she overstepped her bounds regarding heirs.
The silver-haired lady resolves to put her emotions aside and focus entirely on Albert's debut.
At the venue, Albert assists Diana from the carriage with a practiced and noble grace.
Diana reminds herself that a true leader must separate personal feelings from their official household duties.
She observes Albert's poise, acknowledging that his stoicism is a desirable and necessary trait for leadership.
As they enter the grand hall, Diana is deeply impressed by Albert's rapid and professional growth.
Albert walks forward with a determined gaze, ready to face the scrutiny of the gathered elite. Diana struggles with her internal urge to meddle despite her resolution to just watch him tonight.
An elderly woman warmly greets the couple, inviting Albert to address her as his grandmother. The couple continues through the crowd as the older lady expresses her approval of their presence.
Albert appears slightly overwhelmed and awkward under the intense attention of the high-ranking ball guests.
A soft, mournful sigh sounds as Diana realizes she can never truly be treated as family.
Albert pauses, his expression clouding over with a mix of growing anxiety and quiet, firm resolve.
Viscount Kidman formally welcomes the young Marquis and Diana to the exclusive and grand gathering.
Onlookers whisper in the background that Albert is the perfect image of the late Lord Fritz.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as a woman in the distance cries out for the madam.
A noblewoman collapses in shock upon seeing Albert, sobbing out the late Lord Fritz's name.
Maids rush to comfort the distraught woman as she weeps into a small white handkerchief.
Kidman promises Albert that he will formally introduce him to the emotional later that evening.
A faded memory shows the woman's deep and long-standing fondness for Lord Fritz and his wife.
Albert listens intently, processing the heavy emotional impact his presence has on the family's old allies.
Turning toward the guests, Albert prepares to fully navigate the complex social web of the ball.
Albert and Diana are interrupted as a woman's voice calls out to the young Marquis.
An elder woman in brown offers to guide Albert to the former Countess of Bacher.
Diana politely excuses herself to the lounge to avoid the Countess due to their history.
The silver-haired woman walks away, leaving Albert to handle the family's social obligations alone.
A dark-haired man named Bartel approaches Diana, expressing his honor at meeting her again. Bartel thanks the silver-haired lady for the business opinions she shared with him previously.
Standing on the terrace, they discuss the expanding market trends moving toward the south.
The dark-haired man encourages her, noting the great business opportunity awaiting her in the south.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Bartel offers his coat to the shivering, silver-haired lady.
Diana looks up in surprise as the dark-haired man personally drapes his coat over her.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Albert bursts onto the terrace, catching the pair together. With a look of intense frustration, Albert demands to know what the two are doing.
Bartel remains calm, greeting the young Marquis despite the clear tension in the night air.
Albert coldly questions the appropriateness of their private meeting on the quiet terrace.
The blonde man expresses his disbelief at the lack of respect shown to the family honor.
Bartel firmly defends their interaction, stating that nothing improper occurred between him and the Marquiness.
Albert snaps that the family's reputation is paramount and any potential scandal is entirely unforgivable.
Adjusting his glasses, Bartel questions Albert's logic with a skeptical and challenging expression.
Bartel suggests that keeping a lover in the same mansion as a wife is a greater disgrace. Tension crackles between the two men as they exchange heavy, silent glares on the terrace.
Stepping in, Diana sternly orders Bartel to apologize for his disrespectful and rude comments.
Bartel immediately relents, offering a formal apology for his thoughtless and immature behavior.
He highlights how Diana's business management significantly boosts the reputation of the entire Fleisefen Marquisate.
Bartel asks Albert to allow him to continue his business partnership with Diana for the family's sake.
Albert accepts the apology, but warns the dark-haired man to keep his words in mind.
With a polite smile, Bartel bids farewell, promising to meet the silver-haired lady for work later.
Albert roughly removes Bartel's coat, replacing it with his own jacket to shield Diana from the colt.
A sharp, commanding pull sounds as Albert grabs Diana's hand and insists on leaving immediately.
Albert addresses her by name with a firm intensity that startles the silver-haired lady. Diana's eyes widen in genuine shock at the sudden and passionate change in Albert's demeanor.
Petals drift through the air as Albert leads the stunned Diana away from the terrace.
Following him, Diana realizes that Albert's reaction stems from more than just concern for honor.
Albert looks back at her with determination, once again urging Diana to return with him.
The silver-haired woman quietly agrees, her expression reflecting her confusion over Albert's unexpected behavior.
They reunite with the elder lady, who informs Albert that the Countess has finally calmed down. Passing through the hall, Albert hears guests inquiring about the whereabouts of Marchioness Fleifen.
He overhears a guest mocking the men who were frustrated that Diana didn't become a widow. A dark memory surfaces of a man attacking Diana, fueling the malicious rumors surrounding her. Albert realizes the rumors about her villainy are lies born from the intense jealousy of others.
He envisions Diana as a radiant figure of purity, surrounded by blooming white flowers.
Albert wonders if anyone is truly concerned for her or brave enough to speak their feelings.
Addressing the guide, Albert politely declines meeting the Countess tonight, promising a visit later.
The couple walks through the grand ballroom, drawing the curious and lingering gazes of the elite.
Albert appears deeply troubled, his mind clearly preoccupied with the truth about his wife's reputation. He recalls the sight of Bartell touching Diana's shoulder, a memory that fuels his inner turmoil.
Diana looks at him with soft eyes, sensing the heavy weight of his current thoughts.
The young Marquis leads his wife toward the exit, his grip on her hand firm and protective.
The scene shifts to the dark forest as the horse-drawn carriage travels under a starry sky. A rhythmic, steady clatter sounds as Albert and Diana sit in a heavy, awkward silence together.
Diana sits in the carriage, her face reflecting her weariness after the evening's emotional events.
Albert feels a shiver of allure while observing the silver-haired lady's undeniable presence.
In the carriage, Albert admits to himself that no one remains unaffected by Diana's beauty.
A dark memory flashes of Diana deceiving his grandfather, reinforcing her reputation as a villain. Albert reflects on how Diana's public support for his relationship masks her private deceptions. He recalls many contradictions in Diana's behavior that don't align with her supposed ambitions. Albert remembers Diana intentionally avoiding their wedding night to support his bond with Mia. Every night, Diana sacrifices her sleep to meticulously tutor Albert in his various duties.
While Diana sleeps peacefully, Albert sits awake, contemplating the weight of her constant dedication.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Albert reaches out toward the sleeping, silver-haired lady.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Albert flinches away from Diana in intense internal conflict.
Albert balances late-night studying with his daytime efforts to maintain his relationship with Mia.
He questions why a truly wicked woman would work so hard to make him lord.
Surrounded by white flowers, Albert finally admits to himself that he is attracted to Diana.
He acknowledges that his past hatred and anger blinded him to his true growing feelings.
Albert looks forward with a somber, focused gaze as he processes his internal emotional shift.
Despite his feelings, Albert resolves that his official relationship with Diana must remain unchanged.
He plans to leave the estate eventually, believing Diana is too noble to be toyed with.
A loud, rhythmic thud sounds as Albert's heart races while mentioning Thomas is away.
Diana suggests Albert spend the night with Mia, promising to keep the servants from gossiping.
Looking down, Albert finds it incredibly frustrating that Diana continues to meddle in his affairs.
They agree to keep their distance, acknowledging there is no future for their personal relationship.
Diana's face remains stoic and beautiful as she processes Albert's firm and cold rejection. A rhythmic, steady clatter sounds as the carriage arrives back at the darkened mansion courtyard.
Diana steps out of the carriage, leaving Albert behind to deal with his own thoughts.
A soft, rhythmic whisper sounds as Diana stops when Albert suddenly calls out her name. Diana realizes Albert finally sees her true self, not just a wicked witch or grandmother. Feeling acknowledged for the first time, Diana stands with Albert amidst a bloom of flowers. Later, Diana informs her mate Collie about Lady Mia's upcoming and very first tea party.
Collie enthusiastically promises to ensure Diana remains the most beautiful woman at the gathering.
Preparing for the event, Diana sits quietly while Collie brushes her long, silver hair. On the way to the party, Diana notes the guests are all young noblewomen. Diana arrives at the grand tea party, standing before the seated and curious noble guests.
The three noblewomen at the table exchange judgmental and skeptical looks as Diana approaches.
With practiced grace, Diana politely thanks Lady Mia for inviting her to the social gathering.
Mia smiles broadly, suggesting she thought Diana might be too busy to attend the party.
A soft, rhythmic giggle sounds as the noblewomen mock Diana's forced marriage to Albert.
Diana listens silently as the guests praise Albert's unwavering love and devotion toward Lady Mia.
A sharp, rhythmic rustle sounds as Diana tightly clenches her hands in her dark lap. Mia playfully asks the guests not to gossip, though her expression remains triumphant and smug.
The blonde girl notes that Diana still refuses to hand over her household leadership duties.
A pink-haired guest calls Diana's continued hold on the Marquis' position entirely arrogant and audacious.
A sharp, rhythmic clatter sounds as Mia subtly enjoys the guests' insults toward the silver-haired lady.
An empty, ornate chair sits at the table, emphasizing the tension within the social circle.
Diana sits and sips her tea while the surrounding women continue their pointed and cruel chatter.
The noblewomen laugh and gossip amongst themselves, ignoring Diana's quiet and stoic presence.
Sipping her tea, Diana listens as Mia claims that Albert tends to be quite clingy. Mia blushes while describing how seductive and husky Albert's voice sounds when he calls her.
Mia claps her hands excitedly, gushing about Albert's affection in front of the silent, silver-haired lady.
Diana stares blankly as she realizes Albert has never once called her by her actual name.
Seeing Diana's reaction, Mia feigns concern and asks if she said something inappropriate or offensive.
Mia continues gushing to her guests about Albert's supposed kindness and gentle nature. The pink-haired noblewoman expresses deep envy over Albert's exclusive devotion and affection for Mia.
Diana stares at her own reflection in the tea, feeling a sudden, heavy sadness. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as tea spills across the table during the tense gathering. Mia looks down in shock as tea stains the pink dress Albert chose for her.
The maid Marique rushes over, expressing her frantic concern that Lady Mia might be burned.
Mia weeps over the ruined dress, lamenting that Albert personally picked it out for her. The noblewomen glare at Diana, labeling her actions toward the young girl as entirely cruel.
Diana remains silent and stoic, absorbing the harsh accusations of the judgmental social circle.
A heavy, awkward silence hangs over the table as the maid tends to the mess.
Albert suddenly appears, demanding to know the cause of the commotion at the tea party.
The guests and Mia are startled by the young Marquise's sudden and imposing presence.
Mia tearfully apologizes to Albert for failing to protect the dress he gave her.
A guest immediately blames Diana, claiming she spilled the tea out of pure malicious jealousy.
Albert ignores the gossip and checks on Mia, asking if she has been injured.
A sharp, commanding pull sounds as Albert suddenly grabs the silver-haired lady's hand.
Albert barks Diana's name with a fierce intensity that shocks everyone present at the table.
Diana looks up at the blonde-haired man, stunned by the raw emotion in his eyes.
Without another word, Albert leads the silent and confused Diana away from the social gathering.
A rhythmic, steady clatter sounds as they walk together through a hallway of white flowers.
Albert stands before Diana with a troubled gaze, his mind clearly racing with conflicting thoughts.
Diana realizes she would have simply accepted the blame if he had asked her. She struggles to decipher the complex feelings between her, Albert, and the young lady Mia.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Albert reaches out, his hand nearing Diana's face.
Albert pins Diana against the wall, confirming that he truly saw what happened at the table.
The blonde-haired man blushes deeply, turning away in a sudden burst of intense embarrassment.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Albert flinches away and beats a hasty retreat.
The scene shifts to the grand hall as Albert walks away, leaving Diana behind.
Diana notes with quiet surprise that Albert chose not to scold or punish her.
She wonders why Albert actually stepped in to rescue her from that hostile social situation.
Surrounded by white flowers, the silver-haired woman reflects on Albert's unexpected and protective behavior.
Later, Diana and her maid Collie discuss the ongoing affairs within the Fleisman mansion. Out in the village, Collie and Thomas find the shop they wanted to visit is closed.
Thomas tries to cheer up the grumpy Collie, who is frustrated by their bad luck.
Walking through the town, Collie firmly insists to Thomas that their outing is not a date. While eating, Collie mutters darkly about swapping medicines so Diana could have a child.
Thomas offers Collie a bite of food, urging the brown-haired girl to finally calm down. Collie notices other women staring at Thomas, feeling the pressure of their lingering, curious gazes.
She assumes the onlookers view her merely as a sister who looks nothing like him. Thomas reaches out to touch Collie's face, teasing her about her supposedly cute expression. Collie reacts with genuine shock and a bright blush at being called cute by Thomas.
Thomas smiles warmly at her, his affectionate demeanor catching the young maid completely off guard.
Collie shouts at him to use his charm on the intended target instead of her.
As night falls, Collie is overjoyed to find a specific shop has finally opened.
They enter the dim shop, where Collie addresses an older shopkeeper regarding a secret reservation.
Collie notices the shopkeeper's bruised eye while Thomas looks on with a nervous expression.
The brown-haired girl leans over the counter, her eyes fixed on something very specific. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Collie realizes she has found the item she needed. A dark, rhythmic laughter sounds as Collie erupts into a triumphant and slightly wicked giggle.
Thomas and the shopkeeper watch in bewilderment as Collie celebrates her mysterious and successful discovery.
Collie plots a surprise for the upcoming territory visit, determined to show Albert something new.
Reflecting on 3 months of marriage, Diana acknowledges only 9 months remain of her contract.
A rhythmic, steady clatter sounds as Albert reviews documents during the carriage ride with Diana.
Albert explains the significance of the various industrial and historical sites throughout the Fleisafen territories.
Albert questions the stagnant tax revenue despite population growth, prompting Diana to provide a detailed explanation. Observing the local farming technology, Albert expresses genuine interest in the mechanics of a regional water wheel.
Diana observes Albert with a subtle smile, feeling that he is finally beginning to trust her.
The carriage travels through a picturesque village settled along the banks of a peaceful river.
Upon arrival, the local workers eagerly request Diana's expert opinion on their current project.
Loud, the secretary, formally greets Diana as she joins the group of men on site.
Diana expresses her sincere satisfaction after seeing the positive feedback from her previous year's policies.
Diana recalls her grandfather's wisdom about the importance of a ruler staying connected to their people.
A young worker shyly offers Diana a modest dessert, remembering her favorite treats from last year.
Albert interrupts the pleasant interaction, noting the difficulty of the reports Diana has been handling.
Albert asserts his authority and affection by putting his arm around Diana before the gathered workers.
A rhythmic, steady thump sounds as Diana's heart races when Albert publicly refers to her as his wife.
As night falls, the scene shifts to the quiet, moonlit exterior of the local lodgings.
While Diana bathes, Kali announces she is leaving an outfit before stepping out for the night.
Diana stares at the suggestive red nightdress Kali left, realizing the maid is playing matchmaker.
A sudden, sharp click sounds as Diana enters the room where Albert is still working.
Wearing the bold red dress, Diana awkwardly claims Kali left the garment by mistake.
Blushing deeply, Albert drops his papers and dismissively jokes that the dress is more Tobias's taste. Albert quickly stops Diana from helping him, his embarrassment evident as he picks up the papers.
Albert brusquely tells Diana to go to bed to avoid catching a cold in the room.
Seeing Albert's frustrated expression, Diana mistakenly believes she has deeply annoyed him with her appearance.
Diana lies in bed, feeling a sense of distance and uncertainty following their awkward interaction.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Albert suddenly reaches out toward the silver-haired woman in bed.
Without warning, Albert pulls Diana into a firm embrace, startling her with his sudden closeness.
Surrounded by blooming flowers, Albert holds her tight, insisting he cannot let her catch a cold. Albert's gaze is soft and determined as he repeats his protective concern for Diana's health.
Diana looks up at the blonde man, stunned by the unexpected intimacy of the moment.
A rhythmic, steady thump sounds as Diana feels the warmth and strength of Albert's body.
Diana closes her eyes, finding the sound of Albert's steady heartbeat to be incredibly comforting.
They lie together in a peaceful embrace, the previous tension finally giving way to quiet affection.
The next morning, a cheerful Kali eagerly asks Diana about the success of the red nightgown.
Kali is delighted by her perceived success, though she notes Diana looks surprisingly energetic.
Diana maintains a calm expression, simply stating that she slept very well the previous night.
Kali is shocked and begins to question Albert's masculinity since the night ended so peacefully.
Albert recalls giving Tobias a freezing, warning glare to stay away from the estate's personal affairs.
Kali erupts in a frantic blush, shouting Tobias's name in a sudden burst of emotional confusion.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as the carriage jolts violently while traveling through the dense forest.
Albert looks out the window, demanding to know the cause of the sudden, jarring stop.
The knights and staff gather around the carriage to inspect the damage to the vehicle.
Lau informs Albert that a broken axle has made further travel in the carriage impossible.
Lau apologizes for the lack of female attendants, but Diana graciously assures him it is fine.
A knight confirms a replacement will arrive tomorrow, and Albert orders the group to set up camp.
The group works together to build a fire and prepare a meal under the darkening sky.
Diana sits with Albert and Lau, sharing a simple outdoor meal by the warmth of the campfire.
Diana reflects on Albert's impressive leadership and quick judgment during the unexpected emergency situation.
Surrounded by the forest, Diana finds herself staring at Albert, deeply impressed by his noble character.
Resting by the campfire, Diana hopes to wear a normal nightgown during tomorrow's travel.
A sudden ambush erupts in the dark forest as knights clash with hooded assassins. Albert quickly muffles Diana's gasp, keeping her hidden and silent within the dense bushes.
The blonde-haired man urgently commands Diana to run toward the safety of the woods.
They flee into the forest as the guards work to hold back the advancing enemy.
Two hooded assassins brandishing daggers sprint through the woods in pursuit of the couple.
Hand in hand, Albert and Diana navigate the rough forest terrain to escape their pursuers.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Diana falters, her face flushing with an unexpected realization.
Albert picks the silver-haired woman up, carrying her as they continue their desperate flight.
Rhythmic, heavy footsteps sound as the determined assassins close the distance through the dark brush.
The blonde man carries Diana along a treacherous rocky path, focused solely on their survival.
They share a moment of intense eye contact as the sound of pursuit draws closer.
Distant voices call out an alarm, questioning if the fleeing targets have fallen over.
One of the hooded men searches the cliffside, desperately seeking any sign of their targets.
Albert hangs precariously from a sturdy branch, holding Diana's hand as she dangles over water. The blonde-haired man looks down with relief, thankful that he managed to catch her.
Diana stares up at him, her expression a mix of shock and budding trust.
Looking at her bruised hand, Diana wonders why Albert refuses to let her go.
Albert pulls Diana closer as the voices of their pursuers echo through the dark night.
Diana realizes that being discovered is inevitable and ponders the true objective of the attack. She somberly contemplates sacrificing herself to ensure the pursuers finally stop their relentless chase.
Albert remains steadfast in his resolve, silently promising to protect his companion at any cost.
Similarly, Diana feels a deep rising desire to ensure the blonde-haired man's safety.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Albert stares in shock when Diana releases her grip. The silver-haired woman plunges into the dark, swirling depths of the river below the cliff. Albert reaches out in a desperate, futile attempt to reclaim her as she falls away.
A sudden, sharp scream sounds as the assassins react to the sight of their target vanishing.
A massive, rhythmic splash sounds as Diana hits the surface of the cold river water.
Sinking into the blue abyss, Diana feels the weight of the water surrounding her body.
She accepts her fate, happy to have protected Albert despite the looming scolding from Casper.
A glowing vision of Albert appears, his voice gently calling her name in her mind. Diana closes her eyes, wishing she could hear his comforting voice just one more time.
A promotional banner for the series appears featuring colorful and stylized character illustrations.
The scene shifts to a grim dungeon where a younger Diana lies injured on the floor. A soft, rhythmic dripping sounds as a guard enters the damp dungeon cell to retrieve her.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as the guard roughly pulls the silver-haired woman up.
Standing in a grand hallway, Diana meets with the tall, imposing figure of Lord Casper. Casper examines the scars on her arm, noting with dark amusement that they have healed. The dark-haired man holds a sharp dagger to Diana's forehead, testing her unwavering resolve.
Without hesitation, Casper plunges the blade into Diana's thigh as she remains perfectly still.
He commands her to look at him and cry, seeking to feed on her despair. A sudden, sharp grinding sound as the blade is pressed deeper into the silver-haired girl's leg. A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as a single tear finally rolls down Diana's face. Casper smiles sinisterly, visibly delighted by the sight of her pain and suffering.
He holds her chin, declaring that nothing is more beautiful than her blood and tears.
A rhythmic, steady thump sounds as Diana's bloodshot eye reveals the depth of her agony. Later, a kind gray-haired man sits at the bedside of the sleeping silver-haired woman.
The older gentleman watches over her with a gentle, fatherly smile full of genuine concern.
Feeling a familiar touch, Diana mistakenly believes Lord Casper is the one holding her hand.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as the silver-haired woman smiles peacefully in her sleep.
Albert shouts Diana's name in a panic after she plunges into the river.
Diana lies unconscious and bandaged as Albert and Kali watch over her bedside.
Reassured by Diana's recovery, Albert asks if the silver-haired woman is truly safe.
The blonde man explains that the attackers fled once Diana fell into the ravine.
Albert quickly stops Diana from getting up, insisting she wait for the doctor's arrival.
Diana escaped serious injury after being caught on a fallen tree branch downstream.
Recovering in bed, Diana bears bandages on her face and neck from the ordeal.
Diana reflects on the duty she still carries while resting under Albert's watchful care.
Albert questions her recklessness, and Diana apologizes for throwing herself into such grave danger. The blonde man reminds her that her death would mean losing their inheritance rights. Blushing deeply, Albert shouts that his concern for her life isn't just about money.
Diana stares up at Albert, surprised by the intensity of his emotional and protective reaction.
Their gazes meet in a moment of shared vulnerability amidst the soft, glowing light.
Albert continues his conversation while Diana watches him from her place in the bed.
Under the pale moonlight, Diana begins to voice her suspicions about the recent attack. Diana tells Albert that the ambush was too calculated to be a random bandit raid. She suggests that someone powerful and wealthy stands to profit from their deaths.
Diana explains the law where unclaimed titles and lands revert directly to the crown.
Shadowy figures representing the princes and queen appear as Diana identifies the potential masterminds.
Chibi versions of the couple discuss whether the royal family truly wants them dead.
Diana realizes her infamous reputation makes her an easy scapegoat for any political framing. A vision of Lady Mia being arrested illustrates the danger of their current predicament. Diana clutches her chest as she discusses the high stakes of their survival.
Albert looks at her with disbelief, asking why she would go to such lengths. Diana reveals that her actions are driven by her loyalty to Lord Casper's wishes.
She emphasizes that saving the inheritance was the only way to protect Albert's future. Albert's expression softens into sorrow as he asks if she really intends to divorce him.
Diana remains silent, the weight of their complicated relationship hanging heavily between them.
Albert expresses relief that he had the foresight to seek help from Thomas beforehand.
Diana wonders if Thomas, a man sent by the crown, can truly be trusted. Resting alone, Diana questions if the recent accidents were actually coordinated attempts on their lives.
The red-haired man, Thomas, arrives and casually asks Mia how she has been faring.
Thomas smiles charmingly, presenting an image of a friendly and approachable noble.
Mia greets Thomas with a bright, enthusiastic welcome as he enters the room. Thomas offers Mia his full support, promising to help her whenever she is in trouble. While reading a letter, Thomas discusses how Diana might be secretly funding Mia's hometown.
A narrative panel reveals Mia's fear that Albert might leave her if the truth surfaces.
Mia's face contorts with anger as she views Diana's charity as meddlesome interference.
Mia pleads with Thomas to keep the matter of the secret aid from Albert.
Mia skimmily notes that Thomas is single and will be easy for her to manipulate.
A maid serves tea as Mia tells Thomas how much she has missed him.
Mia thanks Thomas for his help in making her previous tea party a success.
Flashback panels show Mia enjoying a social gathering with several other elegant noblewomen. Mia recalls an incident where tea was spilled all over her dress during the event.
She tells Thomas that her friends Rhea and Rebecca were kind enough to defend her.
Thomas notes that Mia's associates will help spread her favorable reputation throughout the court.
Thomas plans to use these connections to spread rumors about Diana's supposed cruelty.
Mia reacts with pure joy at the prospect of tarnishing Diana's public image.
Thomas turns his attention to the brown-haired maid while Mia continues her scheming.
Looking closely at the maid, Thomas correctly identifies her by the name Marike.
Rejecting the current sweets, Mia demands her preferred treats instead. Mia asks the maid to fetch her favorite treats while Thomas watches.
Thomas calmly sips his tea as the blonde-haired woman remains by his side. They discuss social standing and the real purpose behind Mia's recent tea party. Thomas questions the progress of her etiquette training, making Mia look visibly nervous.
The red-haired man ponders their tough situation while Mia looks on worriedly. Mia is startled and questions Thomas when he suddenly turns away from her.
Mia reflects on her precarious position and the need to maintain her current image.
Thomas discusses how some noblewomen use children as an excuse to leave society.
A narrative panel illustrates a mother and child while Thomas continues his cynical explanation.
Mia hides her face in feigned embarrassment or deep thought while sitting with Thomas.
Fearing the truth, Mia worries her life is over if her secrets are revealed.
Chibi versions of the couple discuss Albert's serious nature and their potential next steps. Thomas mentions they might not need specific medicine, confusing the blonde-haired woman. The red-haired man maintains a thoughtful and stoic expression during their intense conversation. Thomas reaches into his coat to reveal the items he brought for Mia. He presents Mia with two mysterious vials, immediately piquing her curiosity and attention.
Mia realizes the bottles contain an aphrodisiac and a contraceptive, leaving her completely stunned.
Thomas leans in close, offering the vials to Mia as a dubious good luck charm. A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Mia tightly grips the dangerous new gifts. Thomas departs, promising Mia his full support whenever she may find herself in trouble.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Mia hides the secret vials within a drawer.
The maid informs Mia of an arrival, prompting the woman to prepare her greeting. A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as Mia excitedly rushes off to meet Lord Albert. Albert returns to the estate, carrying a badly injured and unconscious Diana in his arms.
Mia's bright smile instantly falters as she takes in the sight of her rival.
Albert urgently orders a room prepared and a doctor called for the suffering woman.
Mia looks at the battered Diana and cruelly notes her terrible and exhausted condition.
She tries to convince Albert to let another man, Tobias, handle Diana's care instead.
Albert shut down Mia's interference, insisting they talk about her concerns much later.
Mia watches from a distance as Albert carries Diana deep into the private quarters.
Mia reflects on Albert's kind nature, knowing he cannot ignore anyone who is sick. Albert prepares to take direct control over the household duties and Diana's personal recovery.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Albert enters the room to check on Diana.
Albert remains by Diana's side, watching over her with concern as she sleeps peacefully. Seeing Albert's changed expression, Mia fears her goal of winning his heart is failing. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as the maid asks Mia about her next move.
Mia considers the items Thomas gave her, wondering if they can be used now.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as the maid leaves Mia alone on the couch.
Engulfed in a dark, ominous aura, Mia holds the two vials with growing malice.
Recalling the domain visit and the recent attack, Diana reflects on their harrowing journey.
Resting in her bed, the silver-haired woman hopes that sleep will aid her recovery. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as the scene repeats Albert's desperate return with Diana. The doctor diagnoses Diana with mild pneumonia and a cracked rib from her ordeal.
Diana lies alone in her bed, her room cast in a soft, dim light.
Albert remains by her side, working through paperwork while ensuring she is kept safe.
Diana wakes to see Albert, though the blonde man believes she is still sleeping. She believes the gentle sight of Albert is merely a beautiful and happy dream. Waking up later, Diana asks the maid Corey if she was the one watching.
Corey reveals the touching truth that Lord Albert was the one who never left.
A few days later, Diana begins transferring her official estate duties to Lord Albert.
The silver-haired woman asks Albert about their progress on countermeasures against the royal family.
Looking troubled, the blonde man questions if they must truly rely on Bartel's cooperation.
Despite his reservations, Albert agrees to follow the plan since it is Diana's decision.
Noticing her flush, Albert worries that the silver-haired woman's fever might be rising again.
Albert carries the exhausted Diana, who offers a soft and sincere apology for her state. Resting in bed, Diana reflects on how much time she now spends with Albert. While Albert works diligently, Diana wonders if their closeness makes Lady Mia feel uncomfortable.
Overlooking the estate, Diana notes only 8 months remain in their temporary 1-year marriage. Viscount Bartel arrives, expressing relief that the silver-haired woman is finally safe and recovering.
Kneeling respectfully, the black-haired man holds Diana's hand as Albert and a maid watch.
Bartel explains he was kept away until her health had officially stabilized.
Diana leads him to the bedchamber, noting it is the most secure place for secrets.
A chibi Diana thinks their relationship as husband and wife has significantly improved lately.
Bartel smiles warmly while continuing his private and intense conversation with the silver-haired woman. A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as Albert pulls Diana away, cutting their greeting short.
The black-haired man exhales a long, tired sigh while adjusting his golden monocle.
Albert and Bartel stand together, their expressions serious as they discuss the family's next moves.
Losing his patience, Albert orders the visitor to stop talking and take his seat.
Bartel ponders the situation, realizing why the mansion's guard count has increased so drastically. Albert offers a rare apology for dragging the black-haired man into their dangerous political mess. Closing his eyes, Bartel accepts the apology while remaining focused on the task at hand.
A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as Albert promises a handsome reward once the inheritance is secured.
Bartel reviews the offer of preferential treatment for the next 10 years with a smirk.
Watching the exchange, Diana listens as Albert insists that the high stakes are worth the risk.
A sudden, sharp rustle sounds as Bartel stands, assuring the couple of his total commitment.
Bartel vows to crush any risks, prompting Albert to tell him not to spout nonsense.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as the two men reach an agreement, leaving Diana blushing.
Bartel prepares to head to the capital to advance their talks with the royal court.
The black-haired man promises a reunion in the capital, and Albert confirms his trust.
Bartel stands before Diana, offering a final respectful farewell before his long journey begins.
Bowing deeply, the black-haired man kisses Diana's hand while she looks on with surprise.
Albert looks on with a mixture of shock and irritation at Bartel's bold parting gesture.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as the couple walks together along the stone estate path. Diana struggles to keep up, wondering why the blonde man is rushing so quickly. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick gasp sounding as Diana trips and falls.
Albert catches her in a graceful embrace as white flowers bloom around the romantic moment. The blonde man looks down at her with intense concern as they share a close gaze.
Lady Mia arrives with her red-haired companion, her face clouding with sudden, dark jealousy.
Mia shouts for Diana to stay away from Albert and stop trying to flirt. Distraught and angry, the blonde woman's face contorts with rage at the sight of them. Confronting the silver-haired woman, Mia calls the display of affection far too much to bear. Stepping in, Albert firmly tells Mia that she has said enough and must stop now. Tears welling in her eyes, Mia asks if Albert is choosing to defend Diana again. Diana tries to offer comfort, but Mia turns away, overcome by her own emotional turmoil. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Mia violently rejects Diana's help, screaming about unwanted charity. Mia cries out that Albert hasn't visited her once in the past 3 long weeks. The blonde woman accuses Diana of using her illness to keep Albert all to herself. Confused by the outburst, Diana looks to the nearby maid for some kind of explanation. Diana reflects on her own failings, feeling guilty for relying on the kindness of others.
Diana watches with suspicion as Thomas comforts the sobbing Mia, fearing his hidden influence.
Diana suggests that Mia's recent behavior stems from a significant misunderstanding regarding their current situation. The silver-haired woman encourages Albert to finish his daily duties and spend time with Mia.
Albert feels conflicted about leaving Diana alone with Thomas, despite trusting that his guards are nearby.
Thomas approaches with a smug smile, causing the blonde man to look visibly tense and cautious.
A sudden, sharp ha-ha sounds as Thomas mocks Albert's growth and his refusal to use his name.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Mia suddenly lunges forward to hug Albert tightly in distress.
Watching the intimate embrace, Diana feels a sharp, painful pang of hurt deep within her heart. Thomas offers his arm to Diana, leading her away as she politely thanks him for the gesture. Narrative text explains Thomas's legal rights as executor and Diana's efforts to keep her secrets hidden.
Walking together, Diana reflects on the unexpected meeting and vows to remain extremely vigilant around Thomas. Thomas brings up the recent bandit attack, prompting Diana to apologize for causing him any worry. She admits her shame in failing to recognize the growing danger within the troubled, distant provinces.
Thomas suggests that it is finally time for Diana to return the young Marquis to Mia.
He offers a dismissive laugh, quickly apologizing for his mean comment about their complicated, temporary marriage. When Thomas asks if his words were bothersome, Diana offers a blunt and very firm confirmation.
The red-haired man notes that Mia's current circumstances are actually quite pitiful for a noblewoman.
He remarks that Mia deserved a chance to reconnect with Albert after being apart for so long. Their figures are reflected in a grand, arched window as they walk silently through the estate hall.
Thomas pointedly asks if Diana herself has also become quite close to the young Marquis lately.
Diana reflects that she has at least earned Albert's total trust regarding his official household duties. Thomas reminds her that he has already processed much of the divorce paperwork she previously requested. Diana confirms her resolve, asking him to proceed with the divorce exactly as they originally contracted. They arrive at a large set of ornate double doors, marking the end of their private walk.
A soft, rhythmic rustle sounds as Thomas thanks Diana for accompanying him to the estate exit.
The atmosphere shifts into cold dread as Thomas suddenly looms over the startled silver-haired woman. Thomas pins Diana against the door, demanding to know what it is she truly wants from him. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick gasp sounding as Thomas reaches out to touch her.
He cryptically claims he could save her alone, leaving Diana reeling with deep confusion and fear.
The maid Corey suddenly arrives, shouting for Thomas to step away from Lady Diana immediately.
A sudden, sharp ha-ha sounds as Thomas mockingly praises the maid's loyalty before finally departing.
A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as Thomas bids Diana farewell, leaving her visibly shaken and pale.
Diana offers a cold response, stating they will only speak again if a future opportunity arises.
Overwhelmed by the intense encounter, Diana collapses to her knees as her strength finally gives out.
Corey rushes to her side, offering support as Diana struggles to regain her composure and breath.
Resting in her room, Diana drinks water while Corey watches over her with deep, silent concern.
A sudden, soft sigh sounds as Diana admits she cannot decipher Thomas's true ultimate aim.
She remains haunted by his question, unsure if his actions stem from kindness or deep suspicion.
Regardless of Thomas's intentions, Diana reflects that the path forward is already very clear to her. She recalls her vow to serve Albert and honor the duty entrusted to her by Lord Casper.
Sitting alone, Diana remains determined that she has no need for any help meant only for herself.
The butler enters the room to inform the couple of a sudden and very urgent arrival. Albert and Diana stand together, their expressions turning grave as they prepare for the upcoming news. The blonde man looks on with a stoic face while Diana remains attentively by his side. A messenger reports a devastating flood in Gorda, requiring Albert's immediate presence at the disaster site.
A map illustrates the massive scale of the disaster area that urgently needs the Marquise's leadership.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick gasp sounding as Albert asks Diana to accompany him. Diana follows close behind, noting the heavy burden of responsibility now resting on Albert's shoulders.
The silver-haired woman looks on with a quiet, thoughtful expression as they move through the estate. Albert reflects on his unique ability to determine people's true desires as they prepare for their journey.
Diana warns Albert that his current position makes him a prime target for dangerous assassins. Albert prioritizes the lives of disaster victims over his own safety and personal security.
Looking on with a stoic face, the silver-haired woman remains silently by his side. Diana asks Albert to take half of the manor's guards for his own protection.
She urges him to keep his travel schedule and location a total secret from outsiders. Albert agrees, promising to take every necessary precaution while he is away from home. A carriage waits outside as Mia calls out to Albert before his urgent departure begins. Mia begs Albert to return safely, and the blonde man offers her a firm reassurance. Diana watches the intimate parting from a distance, her expression remaining unreadable and quiet.
The silver-haired woman looks on as the blonde woman clings tightly to her lover. Albert leaves the estate's official affairs in Diana's hands, expressing his total, unwavering trust.
Surprised by his faith, Diana agrees to manage the household during his dangerous absence.
The carriage departs as Mia waves goodbye, watched by Diana and the estate staff.
Back inside, Diana tells the maid Collie that she wants to speak with Mia alone.
The silver-haired woman seems determined to resolve the tension between her and the blonde woman.
Collie expresses concern, asking if Diana is truly prepared to meet with that woman.
A flashback shows Mia surrounded by noblemen, hinting at her past struggles and desperation.
Diana reassures the panicked maid that Thomas's absence provides a rare and safe opportunity.
She admits her guilt for being too busy with official work to help Mia sooner.
Kali is baffled by Diana's soft-hearted nature towards someone who has shown her such hostility.
Diana plans to use Thomas's absence to finally bridge the gap with the blonde wine.
A sudden, soft sigh sounds as Kali agrees to arrange the private, secret meeting.
Diana asks the brown-haired guard Jan to stand watch outside the room for their safety.
Entering the room, Diana thanks Mia for agreeing to meet and talk things over.
The blonde woman looks visibly nervous, her green eyes wide with uncertainty and fear.
Sitting together, Mia wonders what specific topic Diana wishes to discuss during their tea.
Mia suddenly stands and offers a sincere apology for her past behavior toward Diana.
She confesses that she struggles to handle the duties of lordship as effectively as Diana.
Distraught, Mia laments her inability to provide any real help to Albert during this time.
The blonde woman admits her deep shame for not noticing the situation's gravity sooner.
Narrative text emphasizes that Mia's presence is a source of strength for Lord Albert's heart.
Diana insists she is merely a supporting hand helping Albert become a true lord.
The silver-haired woman apologizes to Kali for keeping her true intentions secret until now.
Mia acknowledges Diana's sincerity, realizing the silver-haired woman truly means what she says.
In private, Mia confesses her crippling anxiety regarding Albert's feelings and their temporary marriage.
Diana rebuts Mia's fears, promising that the blonde woman's worries will never come true.
Mia asks if Diana is willing to do anything to prove her word is true.
Standing up, the blonde woman prepares to reveal a secret request to the silver-haired woman.
Mia produces a small blue vial, asking Diana to drink the medicine to prove herself. Mia pointedly asks if Diana will do whatever it takes to finally earn her trust.
The blonde woman's face darkens as she secretly mocks Diana's willingness to be a good girl.
Mia presents the medicine once more, her gaze fixed on the silver-haired woman's reaction.
Diana agrees to drink it, prompting Kali to cry out in sudden, panicked objection.
Mia reflects on Diana's perceived weaknesses, believing the silver-haired woman is far too easy to manipulate.
Diana reassures Kali that Mia would never give her something harmful to her body.
Mia explains that the vial contains birth control medicine, intended for use by couples.
Looking at the chibi faces, Kali insists there's still a massive problem with this situation.
The bright blue liquid is poured onto a spoon, intended for the silver-haired woman. Diana prepares to swallow the medicine to ensure Lady Mia finally feels relieved and secure.
Mia watches with intense shock and satisfaction as Diana follows through with the extreme request.
Mia plots to use Thomas's medicine to frame Albert and manipulate the narrative.
Diana politely accepts Mia's claim of trust during their private tea together.
The blonde woman recalls Diana's previous mention of having important business to discuss.
A vision of Albert appears as Mia reflects on following his prior instructions.
Diana emphasizes the need for total secrecy regarding their conversation to protect the household.
The blonde woman's green eyes widen as she considers the possibility of hidden inheritance. Diana reveals that members of the royal family are actively targeting her and Albert.
Mia looks on with a confused expression as she processes the unexpected and grave news. Narrative text explains the legal consequences of death regarding their marriage and family inheritance. The silver-haired woman calmly notes that her death would be the easiest solution.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick bang sounding as Mia spots the vial.
A memory shows the red-haired man presenting 2 vials of medicine to the woman.
The small blue vial sits ominously on the table as the atmosphere grows tense.
Mia is overwhelmed by a sudden, quick gasp as the reality of the situation hits.
Diana notices the blonde woman's sudden distress and asks if she is all right.
The silver-haired woman suddenly slumps forward, her strength failing as the poison takes hold.
Kali rushes to the floor as Diana collapses, screaming for help in sudden terror.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the blonde woman frantically denies any intentional wrongdoing.
The maid calls for the guard Jan, who bursts through the door with his sword.
Yan aims his blade at the cowering blonde woman to prevent her from escaping.
Kali furiously demands to know how Mia could commit such a heinous act against Diana.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Mia realizes her fate for harming a noblewoman.
Resting in Kali's arms, the pale silver-haired woman struggles to maintain her consciousness.
Diana weakly addresses the panicked blonde woman, her voice filled with a quiet intensity.
She pointedly asks if Thomas was the one who provided the deadly blue medicine. Diana offers a reassuring smile, claiming she possesses an antidote and will not perish.
The silver-haired woman commands Mia to return to her quarters as the woman flees.
Hiding under her bedsheets, the blonde woman trembles with overwhelming fear and deep regret.
A sudden soft sigh sounds as Mia laments the disastrous turn of her plans.
She recalls Albert's cold dismissal and his request for her to finally leave the estate.
The blonde man offers to help her find work elsewhere to ensure her safety.
Mia reacts with visible fury, feeling betrayed by Albert's suggestion for her to leave.
She reflects on her desperate attempt to remain by his side by faking their romance. The blonde woman remains determined to become the Marquis's wife despite the lack of funds.
Clinging to the vial, she weeps as she realizes the true nature of Thomas's gift.
The red-haired man suddenly appears in her room, mocking her ignorance with a cruel smile.
Mia confronts Thomas, reminding him of his promise to be her strength and ally. Thomas stands over her, openly ridiculing her stupidity and revealing his true hidden motives.
Looking on with a stoic face, the man enjoys her suffering with cold, detached amusement.
A flashback illustrates Thomas's plan to frame Mia for the silver-haired woman's planned murder.
Thomas dismisses her threats, noting the total lack of evidence connecting him to the crime.
Mia looks on with a terrified expression as she realizes the weight of her predicament.
The red-haired man cryptically assures her that she won't have to worry about anything anymore. A sudden, quick thud sounds as Thomas pins the woman down on her bed.
He force-feeds the poison to the gasping woman, claiming she will appear to commit suicide.
A sudden, quick choke sounds as Mia's life fades while Thomas bids her farewell. The guard and maid support the unconscious silver-haired woman as the scene shifts away.
Thomas reflects on his cruelty as he leaves the room, abandoning the dying woman behind.
A colorful illustration marks the chapter's end while featuring recruitment and social media links. Soldiers patrol the tents at the Western Region Disaster Response Headquarters under a clear sky.
Governor Gorda expresses his deep admiration for Lord Albert's efficient and compassionate disaster management.
Sitting on a wooden bench, Albert humbly deflects the praise back to the governor's efforts. The governor notes how Albert utilized noble residences and theaters as temporary shelters for victims.
Albert is lauded for personally visiting the disaster sites to hear the citizens' urgent requests. Lord Albert explains that his effective response is merely a direct imitation of his grandfather's methods. A vision shows Albert and Diana reviewing maps while contracts reveal his grandfather's emergency preparation plans.
The blonde man looks pensive as he reflects on the legacy he is now upholding.
Memories of Albert sitting by a campfire show him realizing the true influence a lord possesses.
A grand portrait depicts Albert's grandfather, a man who truly cherished and protected his people.
Lord Albert admits that his once strong desire to abandon this land has finally begun to waver.
The blonde man remains silent, his stoic gaze fixed on the weight of his new responsibilities.
Servants recall how Albert's mother, a commoner, suffered greatly from the cruelty of noble society.
The maid Lotta weeps as she laments the staff's inability to protect the late Melanie.
Albert dismisses his painful doubts, realizing that dwelling on the past will provide no real answers.
Governor Gorda teases Albert about his obvious worry for Diana, causing the young man to blush.
A sudden quick creak sounds as the bloodied guard Tobias approaches the surprised men. Tobias stands wounded and weary, holding a dagger as Governor Gorda recognizes the brave man. The governor greets the exhausted guard while Tobias complains about the overwhelming amount of work.
Chibi-faced Tobias pouts about his missing oasis, Kali, as Albert urges him to change clothes. Albert realizes his life is being targeted after remembering Tobias's desperate struggle against a hooded assassin. The blonde man works alongside Gorda to release frozen assets for the city's urgent reconstruction.
Grateful citizens and children gather to bid Albert a fond farewell as his month-long mission ends.
A black carriage travels through a golden forest, carrying the men back toward the main estate.
Inside the carriage, Governor Gorda asks Albert if he has a secret he wishes to share. Gorda bluntly asks the blonde man if Lady Mia is actually his lover or not.
Albert confirms Gorda's suspicion, admitting that Mia is just a childhood friend playing a role. Narrative text explains that Mia's fake romance was a ruse to protect Diana from malicious rumors.
The governor presents a secret letter from Casper, Diana's father, intended for Albert's eyes only. A flashback shows Casper writing the letter, hoping Albert will eventually see Diana's true heart.
Casper intended for Albert to receive the message once he truly accepted the silver-haired woman.
In his letter, the late Marquis thanks Albert for accepting the marriage despite the forced circumstances. A vision shows Albert's mother, Melanie, kindly nursing Casper's dying wife with devoted care. Casper admits he hurried the marriage of Fritz and Melanie to find joy after his loss.
The narrative reveals Casper's deep regret for being inconsiderate toward Melanie's sudden rise in status.
A memory shows Melanie crying out in fear, refusing to attend any more noble parties.
Overcome with grief, the brunette woman weeps while apologizing to her husband, Lord Fritz.
Fritz comforts his distraught wife on the floor as papers scatter around their feet.
Melanie eventually retreated into total isolation, hiding away from the cruel eyes of high society. Dark silhouettes of mocking noblewomen illustrate the malicious bullying that broke Melanie's fragile spirit. The father expresses his deep hope that his child will grow up free from noble constraints. Casper and Fritz maintained a secret correspondence after the family moved to a peaceful mountain village.
Fritz's letters praised young Albert for being a kind, righteous child who deeply loved his mother.
The letter reveals that making Albert the heir was his father Fritz's dying ultimate wish. Albert looks stunned as he reads the final truths contained within the Marquis's hidden letter.
Casper recalls his school days with a silver-haired friend who led a northern Viscount family.
The tragic scene reveals that Casper's friend was falsely accused and died alone in prison. Looking at the silver-haired woman's back, Casper notes his failed attempt to find the missing girl. Driven by deep suspicion, Casper travels north to investigate his friend's mysterious and lonely death. A somber narrative reveals that Casper reached his friend's home 1 year after the tragedy. Casper witnesses the treacherous, dark-haired villain standing over a body with a blood-stained dagger.
The young silver-haired girl lies unconscious with blood staining her cheek and tattered clothing.
Clutching the wounded girl, Casper furiously questions the villain about the other missing children. The dark-haired man cruelly threatens to detail Diana's horrific ordeal in court during his defense.
Casper seethes with pure hatred, shouting the name of the man who destroyed his family.
Narrative text explains Casper's choice to hide the truth to protect Diana's future reputation. The gray-haired man carries the bloodied child to safety after her rescue from the estate. Albert reads the disturbing medical report detailing how Diana's wounds were deliberately and repeatedly gouged.
Casper listens as a doctor explains that Diana dissociated from reality to survive her trauma.
Sitting by the bed, Casper's heart breaks for the suffering of the 9-year-old girl. Over time, Diana's emotions slowly return as she interacts with a small forest animal.
The silver-haired girl grows up protected by Casper and her kind brown-haired maid, Lotta.
Casper offers a gentle, encouraging pat on Diana's head as she focuses on her books. Despite her isolation, reports of Diana's breathtaking beauty and intelligence spread throughout the territory.
Just as Diana prepares to refuse all suitors, she considers Albert as a potential future.
The malicious dark-haired man, Riken, sends a marriage proposal to reclaim his former victim.
Supported by the queen, Riken relentlessly pursues Diana like a predator stalking a nest. Diana remains completely unaware of the looming danger as she studies alongside the Marquis. Her mind has safely buried the traumatic memories, leaving her with no recollection of Riken. A beautiful vision of Albert and Diana at the altar suggests a path toward healing. The queen fuels malicious rumors about Diana to vent her frustration against the Marquis. Casper realizes that Riken is waiting for his death to take Diana by force. Looking toward the garden, Casper reflects on the desperate need for a powerful protector.
The Marquis stares forward with a calm, resolute expression while finalizing his secret plans.
Albert looks stunned as he discovers the true protective purpose behind Casper's final will.
A vision of the couple standing back to back illustrates the potential resentment of a forced marriage.
Knowing Diana's selfless nature, Casper drafted the will to ensure her compliance through sacrifice. The blonde man and silver-haired woman stand together amidst glowing flowers in a peaceful dreamscape. Narrative text describes the marriage will as Casper's greatest strategy and a father's sincere wish.
Casper explains that framing the marriage as temporary was the only way to gain Diana's agreement.
Albert looks downward with a heavy gaze, feeling the weight of the Marquis' hidden intentions.
A sepia-toned memory shows young Diana holding Casper's hand during a moment of quiet bonding.
The letter concludes with a plea for Albert to lead the unfortunate girl into the sunlight. Casper's final words reveal that Diana is the true path to Albert's own future happiness.
A vision shows Casper placing a hand of trust on young Albert's shoulder.
The blonde man reflects on the profound journey Casper laid out for them with a somber face.
Casper admits he had arranged for Diana to escape abroad if the marriage plan failed.
Albert declares he won't let her go as a sudden, sharp ah sounds from his blush.
The blonde man gazes out the window at the vibrant sunset painting the horizon gold.
Looking at the stunning view, Albert is struck by the simple beauty of the land.
Sunlight bathes the grand estate and golden wheat fields as the month-long mission ends. Albert waves a fond farewell to the grateful citizens of the Western region. An abstract glowing image depicts the intense emotional connection beginning to form between the couple. Shimmering patterns of light frame the couple's union, symbolizing the healing of past wounds. Albert watches his reflection with a gentle smile, vowing to earn Diana's love with sincerity. Two maids whisper frantically to each other while carrying linens through the palace hallway.
Gossip spreads about Diana allegedly poisoning Mia, who has remained in a coma for days.
Diana sits in somber silence by the bedside of the unconscious blonde woman, Mia.
The blonde-haired woman, Mia, remains in a deep coma, lying motionless in bed.
Diana watches over the unconscious Mia with an expression of deep guilt and sorrow. The maid Collie enters with fresh supplies, greeting Diana as she continues her vigil. A sudden quick swish sounds as Collie draws the curtains to let in the morning light. As the sun rises, Diana watches Collie prepare a basin of water for the morning routine. Collie coldly orders Diana to leave, accusing her of planning to poison Mia once again. Stung by the accusation, the silver-haired woman insists she was only worried about Mia's health. The maid scowls, dismissing Diana's defense and telling her that playing innocent is utterly pointless. Diana remains silent, her heart heavy with the weight of the servants' lingering suspicion and hostility. A soft, weary sigh sounds as Diana leans against the hallway wall.
overwhelmed by grief. A flashback shows Mia handing Diana a mysterious vial of blue medicine during their earlier meeting. Diana wakes in her own bed, remembering how Thomas tried to force the drug on her. Kali and Jan express their immense relief at Diana's recovery while she asks about Mia's condition.
The maid explains that although Mia received the antidote, it may have been given too late.
Diana laments her failure to protect Mia, questioning why she drank the poison in her place.
The silver-haired woman reflects on keeping the truth of her sacrifice hidden from the entire household.
Narrative text reveals Diana's suspicion that Thomas attempted to silence Mia to cover his tracks.
Diana stands alone in the corridor, regretting her hesitation and exposing Thomas's true malicious nature. Returning to the sick room, Diana sits in quiet contemplation beside the still unconscious blonde woman.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, sharp flutter sounding from the doorway behind her.
Lord Albert enters the room, surprised to find Diana still keeping watch over the unconscious Mia.
Overcome with remorse, Diana drops to her knees and tearfully apologizes for Mia's tragic state. Looking up at Albert, the distraught woman declares her readiness to accept any form of punishment.
Albert kneels before her, gently instructing the silver-haired woman to finally raise her head.
A soft, quick gasp sounds as Albert's hand reaches out to lift Diana's trembling chin. Diana recalls Albert's past coldness when he vowed she would be his primary suspect for any harm.
The silver-haired woman blushes intensely as she meets Albert's now softened and surprisingly concerned gaze.
Albert remains silent for a moment, his blue eyes searching hers with an unreadable, deep intensity. To her shock, the blonde man reassures Diana that Mia's condition is not her fault.
Diana's blush deepens as she continues to blame her own negligence for Mia's current suffering.
Albert places his hands on her shoulders, firmly urging her to go rest while he watches.
Thinking Albert desires solitude with Mia, Diana leaves the room with a lingering sense of sadness.
Kali brings a tray of food, expressing concern that Diana hasn't eaten enough during her recovery. A soft final click sounds as the door shuts, leaving the silver-haired woman alone with her thoughts.
A nostalgic memory shows Marquis Casper relaxing in his favorite rocking chair by the sunlit window.
A sudden long creak sounds as Diana sits in that same chair, engulfed by haunting memories. Diana mourns her failure to protect the person Albert holds most dear despite the trust given. She remembers Albert's gentle touch and his refusal to hold her responsible for the recent tragedy. The silver-haired woman calls herself a fool for feeling a momentary sense of joy from him. Internal monologue reveals Diana's deep shame for finding comfort in Albert's words amid Mia's suffering.
Weeping in the dark, Diana struggles to forgive her own perceived selfishness during this dire time.
Silhouetted memories illustrate her longing for Albert's anger and punishment, rather than his painful trust.
Overcome with grief, she cries out her desire to reunite with her late husband, Marquis Casper. Diana huddles in the chair, wondering why she wasn't berated more for her many failures.
Albert watches from the shadows, his expression unreadable as he sees her grieving in the moonlight.
A warm flashback shows Casper cradling the young girl, calling her his beloved sleeping princess. The gray-haired man carries the silver-haired child toward a bright, golden light in a cherished memory. In the present, Albert carries the now unconscious Diana through the palace with a tender, careful grip.
The blonde man gently lowers Diana onto her bed, his gaze fixed on her peaceful, sleeping face.
Barely awake, Diana notes how Albert's touch feels clumsy compared to the warmth of Casper's hands. Albert's hand lingers on Diana's face as she sleeps, cherishing this rare moment of peace.
Resting in bed, Diana wonders if waking will shatter the beautiful tranquility of her dream.
Albert gazes tenderly at the sleeping woman, promising to reveal his heart upon her awakening. A soft, quick "sue" sounds as Albert reluctantly releases her hair and turns to leave. Standing over her, Albert's silhouette remains motionless as he watches Diana's steady, rhythmic breathing.
The maid rushes in, startling Diana with the urgent news that Mia has finally awakened.
A sudden sharp A sounds as Diana's slippers clatter against the floor in her haste.
Ignoring the maid's protests about her sleepwear, Diana runs frantically toward Mia's sick room. Bursting into the room, Diana looks on with wide-eyed relief at the conscious blonde woman.
Mia looks up from her bed, blinking in surprise at Diana's sudden, disheveled appearance.
Sitting upright, Mia expresses her deep gratitude for the many visits Diana paid during her coma. A bead of sweat rolls down Mia's face as her expression shifts toward nervous agitation.
Mia trembles as she recounts the terrifying moment Thomas allegedly forced her to drink poison.
Diana's heart sinks as she realizes Mia's confession confirms Thomas as a dangerous enemy.
Mia admits her initial ignorance of the drug's nature, while Diana listens with somber intensity.
A flashback shows the attendant's hand offering a spoonful of suspicious medicine to the blonde.
Thomas feeds Mia while Diana watches, unaware of the hidden tension beneath the domestic scene.
In the present, Thomas reflects on the shocking realization that a maid is an infiltrator.
Thomas observes the unconscious assassins, dismissing them as nothing more than disposable, drug-addled junkies.
Under a bright full moon, Thomas sighs about the exhausting tasks Albert consistently demands.
Narrative text explains that the Kidman family manages the Shadows, a secret force protecting Frisvern.
A memory shows Albert inadvertently discovering the Shadow's existence while defeating a group of attackers. Thomas notes that previous assassins were far more skilled than the junkies they currently face.
Wondering if the same mastermind is behind both attacks, Thomas defers the strategy to Albert.
Wandering the halls, Thomas laments the distance between himself and the pure, innocent maid Collie.
Thomas wonders if Collie obtained the medicine, longing for the chance to take her out.
A memory shows Thomas menacingly protecting Collie from a shopkeeper to preserve her untainted world. Thomas peers through the door, questioning how much longer the blonde woman will remain unconscious.
Marike admits she replaced the lethal poison with a weaker dose to control the situation.
The maid reveals she used sleeping pills to maintain the illusion of a critical condition.
Mia laughs, believing her and Marike are partners in a lucrative and calculated crime.
Marike's expression turns cold as she presses a knife against Mia's throat, ending their partnership.
Thomas watches from the shadows, finally confirming that the maid Marike is a professional assassin.
Looming over Mia, the brown-haired maid demands that she assassinate Albert to prove her utility. Thomas realizes Marike is likely connected to the same mastermind pulling the other assassin's strings.
Marike offers Mia freedom and debt relief in exchange for committing the ultimate betrayal.
Thomas decides to wait and observe while planning his next move with the guard, Jan.
Thomas kicks the door open, interrupting Marike's plan to frame the innocent maid, Collie.
Marike brandishes her knife, her face contorting with shock as the attendant suddenly intervenes.
Thomas deflects Marike's strike with a hidden blade, his movements fluid and trained for combat.
Revealing his own arsenal, Thomas decides he must eliminate the threat of the traitorous maid.
Clashing blades, Marike mocks the attendant, calling him a little guard dog as they fight.
Marike taunts Thomas, claiming credit for saving Diana's life by switching the poison earlier.
Thomas freezes for a split second as Marike mentions Diana's potential grief to distract him.
A loud "whoa" sounds as Marike hurls a table to create a path for her escape.
Standing by the open window, Marike mocks Thomas one last time before vanishing into night.
Thomas rushes toward the window, shouting for the escaping assassin to wait as leaves blow.
Crumpled on the floor, Mia weeps in terror after witnessing the brutal and sudden confrontation.
Thomas kneels beside Mia, comforting her while resolving to remain vigilant around Albert's chosen lover.
Mia cryptically reminds Thomas that his true identity is a secret, promising silence regarding Diana's maid.
Mia playfully asks Thomas for water while Collie watches the exchange silently from the background.
Diana stands solemnly before Albert and a guard, her gaze fixed toward the floor.
Albert gazes at Diana with an intense, questioning look, asking if she was recently present.
The silver-haired woman remains silent, surrounded by a delicate and ethereal atmosphere of white flowers.
A soft, quick "pa" sounds as Albert turns his blushing face away from Diana's steady gaze.
Surrounded by blooming flowers, Albert gently pulls Diana close in a protective and sudden embrace.
Albert asks for a private talk with Mia while Diana watches the pair with silent concern.
Diana decides to leave with Collie, allowing Albert and Mia the solitude they seemingly require.
Walking through the palace, Collie smiles warmly while reflecting on her previous worries about Diana.
In a stylized depiction, Diana and Collie discuss their past cold interactions during their quiet walk.
Lost in thought, Diana stands alone among the flowers, her expression somber and deeply introspective.
Sitting by Mia's bedside, Diana and Albert listen to the blonde woman's grave medical update.
Standing beside Albert, Diana prepares to hear the important news Mia needs to tell them.
Mia looks at the couple with a serious expression, ready to share a difficult revelation.
The blonde woman's green eyes reflect a mix of apprehension and resolve as she speaks.
Mia reveals that the poison may have caused lasting after effects, worrying both Albert and Diana.
Looking pained, Mia describes her struggle with persistent dizziness and numbness in her legs.
The blonde woman admits the doctor is uncertain if she will ever achieve a full recovery.
Despairing over her condition, Mia announces her intention to leave the estate once she recovers.
Mia tentatively asks Albert and Diana if she might be allowed to stay a while longer.
Albert reflects on their complicated charade, pained by the thought of ending their fake relationship.
A pained flashback reveals Mia's apology for hiding her debts and threats from a corrupt director.
Narrative text describes how Albert apprehended the debt collectors and ensured Mia's debts were forgiven.
A sudden, sharp gata sounds as Albert stands abruptly, needing to speak privately with Diana.
Diana looks up with startled, wide eyes, surprised by the intensity of Albert's sudden movement.
Mia smiles warmly at Diana, whose face is flushed with an intense and visible blush.
Standing beneath a golden autumn tree, Diana and Albert share a quiet and reflective moment.
Overcome with remorse, Diana tearfully apologizes to Albert for failing to protect Lady Mia.
A soft, quick, gooey sounds as Albert pulls Diana's hand close, his expression turning sharp.
Looking frustrated, Albert demands to know why Diana insists on blaming herself for the tragedy.
Diana gazes away with a deepening blush, her soft apology lingering in the garden air. Albert firmly forbids Diana from apologizing further, his gaze fixed intensely on her pained face.
A soft, quick sue sounds as Albert releases her hand, claiming he should be the one apologizing.
Standing face to face, Albert expresses his sincere remorse for the suffering Diana has recently endured.
Albert declares that he will no longer treat Mia as his lover, shocking the silver-haired woman.
Diana protests, fearing that Albert will sacrifice his own happiness if he lets go of Mia.
Internal monologue reveals Diana's deep concern that Albert's heartache will be immeasurable if Mia leaves. Albert explains that Mia's suffering is a direct consequence of his family's dangerous inheritance dispute.
A soft, quick ha sounds as Diana listens, her heart racing with confusion and unspoken hope.
A single leaf drifts down as Albert reflects on the necessity of sacrificing his own feelings.
The pair stands in silence under the autumn trees, the weight of their words hanging between them.
A soft, quick gew sounds as Diana clenches her dress, feeling a sudden pang of envy. Meeting his gaze, Diana asks Albert if Lady Mia is truly the person most precious to him. Albert confirms that Mia is his dear childhood friend, his expression resolute and deeply sincere. Autumn leaves swirl around the couple as they stand together in the sunlit palace courtyard.
Narrative text reveals that less than 6 months remain until the couple's scheduled divorce. The mustached butler reports that the success of the disaster response is reaching neighboring regions.
Albert listens as the butler explains that Mia will be taken to the capital for treatment. Looking resigned, Albert acknowledges the plan to send Mia away for specialized medical care.
Diana and Albert maintain a formal distance while working together in the quiet library.
Thomas wonders if the missing infiltrator failed his mission or was permanently eliminated.
A brown-haired guard enters the room, signaling he has an urgent message to deliver.
The messenger hands a letter to Albert, interrupting his work at the writing desk.
Albert's face clouds with confusion as he carefully reviews the contents of the letter.
Puzzled by the information, Albert asks Diana for her perspective on the mysterious letter.
Diana identifies the correspondence as originating from Albert and Mia's distant hometown.
Albert notes a discrepancy between the aid sent and the larger amount actually received.
The silver-haired woman processes the news, her red eyes reflecting deep contemplation.
Albert struggles to identify the donor, prompting Diana to question who could be responsible.
Through deduction, Diana concludes that Lord Fritz likely provided the additional financial support.
Diana confirms that the timing of the aid aligns perfectly with the recent disaster.
Albert is visibly moved, expressing his sincere gratitude for Diana's insightful deduction.
A small, warm smile plays on Diana's lips as she watches him.
Diana sits alone by lamplight until a soft click sounds as someone approaches.
Startled from her thoughts, Diana looks toward the door as she prepares for bed.
A soft creak sounds as the door opens, revealing Albert in his nightrobe.
Albert habitually waits until Diana has fallen asleep before returning to their shared bedroom.
Feigning sleep, Diana listens as a soft creak sounds during Albert's late-night entrance.
A soft rustle sounds as Albert reaches out to touch Diana's long silver hair.
Believing her asleep, Albert tenderly kisses her hair in a moment of hidden affection.
Albert's face flushes with a deep blush as he displays his true, secret feelings.
Diana lies awake with a pounding heart, blushing as Albert softly whispers her name.
The scene shifts to a carriage traveling through a dense, sun-dappled autumn forest.
Sitting in silence, Diana looks out the carriage window with a somber expression.
Albert notices her distraction and gently asks what is weighing on her mind.
Diana admits she is preparing herself for the upcoming social challenges in the capital. She anticipates the scrutiny of high society, steeling herself to protect Albert's interests.
Albert listens with a serious gaze, considering the social battleground that awaits them.
A rhythmic rumbling sounds as the carriage carries the couple toward their destination.
Diana reminds Albert that Mia is scheduled to arrive in the capital tomorrow. Upon arrival, they are greeted by Bartel, a dark-haired man wearing a monocle.
Bartel welcomes Diana warmly, his charming smile hinting at their previous acquaintance.
He takes Diana's hand with a flourish, expressing his anticipation for her arrival.
Sensing a territorial shift, Albert firmly pulls Diana closer to his side.
Bartel acknowledges the young Marquis with a playful and familiar greeting.
A firm squishing sound echoes as the two men engage in a competitive handshake. Bartel compliments Diana's overwhelming beauty, much to the silent irritation of her husband. Albert's expression hardens with jealousy as he listens to the flirtatious remarks. Irritated, Albert cuts the conversation short and demands that Bartel finally take a seat.
Bartel continues to tease the couple while Diana looks on with visible confusion.
Diana reflects on how Albert's kindness once made her happy, a feeling that persists.
Despite the affection, Diana feels a pang of guilt, doubting she deserves such happiness.
The trio prepares for a meal, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tensions and secrets.
Diana worries that the planned meeting with a collaborator might not have been successful.
Bartel reassures Diana with a confident smile, telling her there is no need to worry.
Albert and Diana listen intently as Bartel explains the current situation and plans.
The dinner is interrupted as a guard leans in to whisper urgent news to Albert.
Albert's gaze turns sharp and grim as he receives the unexpected report.
Albert lets out a soft, weary ha as he looks down with heavy, tired eyes.
A sharp gutta sounds as Albert stands abruptly, announcing his immediate departure to the townhouse.
Bartel suggests Diana stay behind so he can take her to a new product exhibition.
Diana listens intently as Bartel explains the high reputation of the capital's Chamber of Commerce.
Bartel asks Diana to help him identify products that might benefit the people's daily lives.
Bartel reassures Albert that he will protect Diana, having prepared guards and a clever disguise.
Albert watches Bartel with a serious, calculating gaze, weighing the dark-haired man's reassurances.
Diana gazes forward with a thoughtful expression, her red eyes reflecting deep contemplation.
Stepping behind his wife, Albert places his hands protectively on Diana's shoulders before they part.
With a somber expression, Albert officially leaves his wife in Bartel's capable care for now.
A close-up highlights the intricate blue jewel and golden embroidery of Albert's formal attire.
Bartel offers a reassuring smile, telling Albert he can return to his duties with peace.
Albert leans down toward Diana, who responds with a look of quiet confusion and surprise.
Night falls over the sprawling castle, the landscape bathed in the cold light of a full moon.
A sudden, sharp gasha sounds as a ceramic set is smashed in a fit of rage.
A red-haired man kneels, a soft potah sounding as he is berated for failing his mission.
A woman in a green gown calls him useless, mocking his supposed fondness for a relative.
Looking up, the red-haired man asks if he might change the target of his next mission.
He explains that framing them later will be much more convenient for their shared secret faction.
The woman considers the plan, wondering why he wouldn't simply infiltrate their side instead.
The red-haired man bows his head, pledging to follow whatever the mysterious woman wishes.
The woman lifts his chin with her fan, declaring her desire to seize the land of Frisfer.
She warns him that failure this time means permanent exile, demanding a final display of loyalty.
Looking up with a confident smirk, the red-haired man confirms he is well aware of the stakes.
A soft patsu sounds as the woman closes her fan, counting on his success this time.
Standing on a balcony, the woman gazes at the dark garden, her silhouette illuminated from behind.
Plucking a rose, she mocks Albert's protective efforts, intending to use someone else against Diana.
The woman vows to make Diana von Frisfern disappear, her eyes reflecting a cold, murderous intent.
The scene shifts to the bustling Royal Capital exhibition hall, teeming with vendors and curious visitors.
Bartel explains their plan to move through the exhibition disguised as a modest trading couple.
Diana looks around the fair in a black bonnet, her face flushing with excitement and curiosity. Bartel watches her with a soft smile, genuinely glad to see Diana looking happy and engaged.
Startled, Diana turns toward Bartel and asks if he just said something to her.
Bartel directs her attention to a specific exhibit from the Hales Park Company nearby.
A soft "guh" sounds as Bartel pulls Diana closer to maintain their disguise as a couple.
Diana looks on with wide eyes, surprised by the sudden proximity as they navigate the crowd. A man operates a complex spinning wheel while onlookers watch the demonstration with interest.
Diana stands mesmerized by the machine, her eyes fixed on its rhythmic and intricate movements.
Intrigued, Diana tells Bartel she wants to speak with the person who created the clever machine.
Diana marvels at the machine's efficiency, her face lit with genuine admiration for the invention.
Bartel smiles knowingly as the machine's owner, a blonde man in a cap, turns to them.
The man in the cap asks for their names as he meets the disguised pair.
Surrounded by ethereal white flowers, the blonde man in the cap offers a polite, warm greeting.
The man explains that some repairs couldn't be finished in time for the exhibition's opening.
Diana praises the vertical spindle arrangement, recognizing it as a simple yet truly ingenious design.
Leaning toward the man, Diana's intense interest in the machinery remains clear and focused.
The blonde man thanks them for their interest in starting formal business negotiations over the machine.
A soft G sounds as the man in the cap studies Diana's face with intense curiosity.
The man notes that Diana seems remarkably taken with his new spinning machine's design.
Diana expresses regret that such a useful invention isn't receiving the public attention it deserves.
Bartel suggests a celebration after securing a lucrative deal ahead of their competitors.
Diana emphasizes her desire to spread innovations that will genuinely improve people's lives.
A market scene unfolds as Bartel admires Diana's exceptionally forward-thinking perspective.
A soft sough sounds as Diana sheepishly realizes she spoke too much. Diana reflects on her overwhelming excitement for the technology with a slight blush.
Bartel accepts praise for his wife while the blonde man looks on thoughtfully. The blonde man in the cap looks forward to a very promising future partnership. The trio walks together through the sunlit city streets toward their next destination.
Diana feels a rare sense of pure enjoyment despite getting a bit carried away.
Turning to her companion, Diana sincerely thanks Bartel for bringing her to the exhibition.
Diana gazes forward with a look of quiet, internal reflection on her face. Recalling her maid's frustration, Diana realizes Albert always thinks of her needs first.
Bartel studies Diana's face with a gentle and understanding expression in his eyes.
Leading her forward, Bartel tells Diana she simply needed a refreshing change of pace. Diana contemplates Albert's hidden suffering, touched by his selfless consideration for her.
Walking alongside Bartel, Diana thinks that Albert should also take a well-deserved break.
A sharp ha sounds as the group suddenly senses immediate and lurking danger.
Cloaked figures with daggers rush forward as a sharp ah sound echoes.
A guard shouts, "Stay back," while Bartel pulls Diana protectively behind him.
Guards draw their blades as a soft saw sound marks the start of the skirmish.
A heavy dosa sound repeats as the guards swiftly subdued the masked attackers. Clinging to Bartel, Diana asks what is happening as the sudden confrontation ends.
The man in the cap stands over the fallen assassins, adjusting his hat.
Diana and Bartel look on in utter shock as the man's identity is revealed. The blonde man removes his cap, revealing a face of noble and serious intent.
Surrounded by blue flowers, he formally reveals his true name to the Lady Marquis.
Diana reacts with visible confusion and disbelief to the man's startling revelation.
The man is identified as the fourth prince of the distant kingdom of Vanidua.
A grand carriage arrives at the Frisfern estate under the watchful eyes of the couple.
Albert bows deeply, wholeheartedly welcoming His Highness to the Frisfern townhouse for their meeting.
Standing before the carriage, the blonde prince formally introduces himself as Erwin von Beinajua. Erwin offers a bright and friendly smile, radiating a surprisingly approachable and warm energy.
A soft "guh" sounds as Erwin and Albert share a firm, official handshake.
Albert presents Diana to the prince, who greets the Lady Marquis with polite grace.
Erwin laughs softly, finding the waifus from the exhibition to be quite amusing.
Blushing slightly, Erwin apologizes for finding Bartel's clever act so humorous and entertaining.
A flashback shows Bartel proudly acknowledging Diana as his wife during their secret outing.
Diana and Albert exchange a worried glance, considering the dangerous rumors surrounding her reputation.
Diana reassures Albert of her resolve, preparing to face the upcoming political challenges.
Albert brushes his hair back in a moment of visible stress and heavy fatigue.
The trio gathers in the parlor to discuss the kingdom's increasingly unstable political situation.
Seated on ornate sofas, the atmosphere turns grave as they begin their high-stakes negotiation.
A vision of Queen Wilhelmina appears as Erwin speaks of her influence and power. Albert and Diana listen with growing concern, realizing the depth of the royal conspiracy. The fourth prince, Erwin, maintains a somber gaze while explaining the court's hidden divisions.
A royal family tree illustrates the divide between the queen's sons and talented siblings.
Albert questions the prince's assumptions about the queen's true motives and upcoming plans.
Albert suggests a bold plan to stop the queen's assassins by changing their targets.
The group vows to prevent the royal inheritance from ever falling into the wrong hands.
Erwin considers the proposal with a slight smile, finding the potential deal promising.
Seated in the parlor, Erwin emphasizes that his business decisions rely on personal benefit.
Albert offers the prince future conveniences in Frisfern territory should his business expand there.
Resting his chin on a gloved hand, Erwin listens intently to Albert's territorial offer.
Albert addresses Diana as he prepares to elaborate on the materials gathered for their plan.
Diana clarifies that Albert was the one who compiled the majority of the necessary documents. Albert credits Bartel's assessment of Diana's character before preparing to explain their strategy.
A flashback depicts the impressive efficiency of the spinning machine showcased at the exhibition.
Albert asks for the next step of the plan while the group remains focused. Albert highlights Frisfern's abundant water resources and the efficiency of their established water wheel system.
Holding a document, Albert stands before Erwin while Diana watches the proceedings from the sofa.
Erwin listens as Albert continues to explain the industrial advantages of the Frisfern territory.
Erwin maintains a serious and contemplative expression, carefully weighing the information he has received.
A tense atmosphere lingers as Diana and Albert await the prince's reaction to their proposal.
Diana breaks into a cold sweat, her red eyes reflecting the mounting pressure of negotiations.
Albert leans toward his wife, providing a grounding presence during the high-stakes political discussion.
A close-up captures Diana's quiet contemplation, her face slightly flushed with a soft blush.
A soft gata sounds as Erwin suddenly stands, his tall frame towering over the couple.
Erwin gestures gracefully, signaling his acceptance and appreciation of the terms discussed.
Diana and Albert respond with relief as Erwin expresses his sincere gratitude for their cooperation.
Albert credits Diana for the strategy's inspiration, while Erwin offers a firm, respectful handshake.
The group relaxes slightly as the formal negotiation concludes on a mutually beneficial note.
Erwin expresses interest in the estate's technicians, eager to commence their joint project immediately. Diana watches the interaction with a gentle smile, feeling proud of Albert's diplomatic success. The scene shifts to a grand, empty corridor illuminated by the afternoon sun.
Walking together, Erwin admits he disliked Matthias and intended to agree from the start.
Albert reveals he had already surmised the prince's positive answer based on his open visit.
The trio reaches the foyer where Erwin prepares to depart the Frisfern estate. Diana looks away with a slight bead of sweat, her thoughts still racing with worry.
Gazing at Albert, Diana reflects on his protective nature and the weight he carries.
Diana contemplates the bittersweet reality that their divorce is already an inevitable, settled matter.
Erwin's gaze turns sharp as he considers revising his opinion of the Marquis and Marchioness.
Amidst blossoming roses, Erwin muses about getting involved as he reaches for Diana's hair.
A swift zui sounds as Albert decisively steps between Erwin and Diana to intercept him.
Albert offers a forced smile, pointedly stating he must also revise his opinion of Erwin.
The group stands before Erwin's grand carriage as he prepares to board for his departure.
Erwin schedules their next meeting in 10 days at Count Meyerdel's salon before leaving.
Albert and Diana stand side by side, watching as the royal carriage departs into the distance.
The narrative shifts to the envy of other nobles toward the influential Frisfern family.
A modest New Year's banquet is held where the couple shares a quiet, celebratory toast.
Diana and Albert stand together in the hall, looking every bit the perfect noble pair.
Seated at the dining table, Albert appears troubled, while Diana enjoys a glass of wine.
Collie the maid expresses her heartfelt joy at seeing Diana looking cheerful once again.
Diana realizes she has been causing distress to those around her without even noticing.
Diana smiles warmly at Collie, promising to share the positive updates with her husband.
Collie exclaims with a blush that she no longer cares about a certain man.
Surrounded by lavender flowers, Diana encourages Collie to take her own day off soon. Albert sits alone in his rocking chair, gazing into the warmth of the fireplace. A soft key sounds as Diana enters, interrupting Albert's quiet moment of late-night reflection.
A nostalgic vision shows Marquis Casper affectionately patting a young Diana's head in his chair. Diana sits quietly while Albert stands close, a soft suru marking his gentle touch.
Resting in the rocking chair, Diana sits on Albert's lap as he enjoys a drink.
Albert's face flushes with a sudden, deep blush while gazing intently at his wife.
Albert pulls Diana closer with a soft "giu," suspecting she might be a bit tipsy.
Fireworks illuminate the snowy night sky as music and a festive pawn echo outside.
Leaning against him, Diana expresses her long-held desire to attend the capital's grand festival. A soft Karen sounds as Albert agrees to take her to the festival tomorrow.
Diana gazes forward with a look of warm, quiet anticipation for their upcoming date.
While Diana sleeps peacefully, Albert gently strokes her long silver hair with a sera. Albert continues to admire his sleeping wife, his hand lingering tenderly against her hair. Surrounded by white lilies, Albert looks down at Diana with a gaze of pure affection. Albert muses about Collie's dedication to styling Diana's hair while he watches her sleep. Reflecting on their busy lives, Albert cherishes this rare, quiet moment shared in bed.
Albert encourages Diana to enjoy herself, noting that she truly deserves a refreshing break. Albert invites her along, though Diana notes he is cleverly disguising an inspection as a break.
A bead of sweat forms as Albert reacts with slight embarrassment to her observation. Letting out a tired "ha," Albert looks away while Diana watches him with concern.
The winter market is alive with bustling stalls and festive decorations under a snowy sky.
Clad in heavy cloaks, the couple navigates the Gaia chatter of the busy marketplace. A close-up highlights Albert's ornate cloak and brilliant blue brooch amidst blooming white roses.
Diana looks up at Albert, her cheeks dusting with a soft, nervous blush.
Observing the dense crowds, the group considers alternative paths through the busy festival streets.
Albert suddenly takes Diana's hand with a giu, suggesting a wider street for their safety.
Startled by the sudden contact, Diana looks at Albert and asks what is wrong.
Albert explains that she likely isn't aware of a specific tradition practiced in this region.
He claims that in this city, holding hands is a mandatory tradition during the festival. Albert demonstrates the local style, firmly interlacing his fingers with hers as they walk. A deep ka blush spreads across Albert's face as he struggles to maintain his composure. Regaining his focus, Albert suggests they proceed with their inspection, while Diana smiles warmly. The market's lively atmosphere continues with Gaia chatter as the couple explores together.
Diana points out the local fried dough balls, noting their great popularity among the festival goers.
She explains the local custom of eating 5 meals a day during the festive season.
Albert is impressed by her knowledge, which she attributes to her grandfather, Marquis Casper.
Albert realizes his grandfather's teachings cover everything, tightening his hold on Diana's hand.
Gazing at her through blue blossoms, Albert starts to call out her name.
Diana turns toward him with a look of soft surprise and quiet wonder. Walking away together, Diana gives a bright and happy response to her husband's words. Diana secretly hopes that she isn't the only one feeling this flutter of excitement. Despite the public setting, Diana finds she cannot stop the growing warmth in her heart. Sitting on a park bench, the couple shares a quiet moment eating their fried snacks.
Albert's face turns bright red as he speaks, visibly flustered by their close proximity.
Diana shares a lighthearted moment, glad her grandfather's lessons could finally be put to use.
Albert takes a large, enthusiastic bite of the snack with a muffled paku sound.
Watching him eat, Diana smiles amidst pink flowers, her eyes filled with gentle affection.
Diana looks at her snack with a puzzled expression as she offers a piece. Albert leans forward and takes a bite directly from the snack she is holding.
Surrounded by roses, Albert's expression becomes serious as he is lost in deep thought.
With a soft ozu, Albert gently brings her hand closer, his eyes full of meaning. A guard looms with a zune, sternly warning them that their public affection is excessive. As the crowd watches them with sighs, Diana remains bewildered by the sudden attention. Albert prepares to lead Diana away from the crowd, though she worries about potential breaches of etiquette.
Holding hands, Albert suggests exploring the town of Frisfern together for their next inspection.
A shadow falls over Diana's heart as she remembers their divorce is set for next year.
A sudden, wet splash sounds as festive commoners drench Albert in beer to celebrate. Diana watches in stunned silence as beer droplets pop against Albert's ornate cloak.
Boisterous shouts of cheers echo as the marketplace men continue dousing the blonde Marquis.
The commoners warmly praise Albert's good looks and his beautiful wife as he takes the drenching in stride. Another splash sounds as beer pours over Albert's head to ensure his wife stays dry.
The men laugh, predicting a prosperous year for Albert while he wipes the beer from his eyes.
Drenched but smiling, Albert checks to see if Diana stayed dry while she looks on with concern.
Diana tenderly wipes Albert's face, relieved that the boisterous celebration didn't dampen his cheerful mood.
Despite being soaked to the bone, Albert gazes at Diana with an expression of pure, heartfelt joy.
Diana offers a soft, loving smile, deeply touched by Albert's selfless protection during the chaotic festival.
The winter market remains festive and bright under a clear sky as the couple's date continues.
Back at the estate, Mia claps her hands with delight while greeting her visitors.
Mia beams with excitement, expressing her sincere desire to build a friendship with the silver-haired Diana.
Diana mentions a specialist in poisons to help Mia, who remains determined to recover her strength.
Confined to her wheelchair, Mia shares the optimistic news that she is finally regaining her ability to walk. Mia stands up to demonstrate her progress, showcasing her resilience despite her fragile physical state. A sudden, shaky stumble sounds as Mia's legs give way, her expression turning to one of alarm. Panic flashes across Diana's face as she cries out, fearing Mia is about to collapse. Tobias moves with practiced speed to catch the falling Mia before she can hit the floor.
Flushed with embarrassment, Mia apologizes for her overeagerness and the sudden scare she caused.
Mia leans into Tobias for support, admitting his presence makes her feel safe and relaxed.
Diana offers her sincere thanks to Tobias for his quick reflexes and dedicated care of Mia.
Robin the butler approaches Diana with a solemn air to discuss urgent matters regarding the estate.
Mia insists she can find her own way to her room, wanting to avoid being a burden.
Diana entrusts Mia's care to her faithful maid Collie while she turns her attention to the butler.
Clutching a letter, Diana's red eyes reflect the mounting tension of her hidden political maneuvers.
Robin questions if Albert is aware of the secret plans Diana is currently overseeing.
A heavy silence falls as Diana contemplates the weight of the secrets she must keep from her husband. Diana reflects on the inevitable divorce and the distance that still lingers between her and Albert. Diana implores Robin to maintain absolute secrecy regarding their conversation to protect the current political balance. Sitting alone in the grand office, Diana stares at her documents, the reality of her duty setting in. Despite the looming separation, Diana finds herself trusting Albert more deeply with each passing day.
Albert speaks firmly about their shared future, reminding Diana that their path forward remains their decision alone.
The couple reunites with Prince Erwin, who looks forward to their next meeting at the Count's salon.
A grand carriage cuts through the deep snow, carrying the nobles toward their next high-stakes social gathering. The elite salon buzzes with hushed conversations and the sharp pressure of noble reputation and wit. Arriving at the prestigious venue, Albert notes that Prince Erwin is a frequent guest among these walls.
The grand estate stands as a beacon of power and influence amidst the frozen winter landscape.
A servant welcomes the couple, explaining that the host is currently occupied with other distinguished guests.
Albert maintains a stoic and regal composure, ready to face the complexities of the capital's social circle. A new figure approaches, identifying them as the rumored Marquis and Marchioness of Frisfern.
Tension ripples through Diana as she prepares to meet the man who may challenge their territory's future. Prince Matthias reveals himself as the Queen's chosen candidate to take over the Frisfern lands. Diana breaks into a cold sweat as she realizes the true scale of the opposition they face.
Albert formally introduces Diana as his wife, standing as a united front against the prince's scrutiny.
Prince Matthias offers a sharp, calculating smile while acknowledging Albert's admirable handling of recent events.
Prince Matthias observes Albert with a patronizing air, questioning his self-awareness as a leader. Matthias places a mocking hand on Albert's shoulder while Diana watches the interaction closely.
With a condescending smile, Matthias warns Albert to remember his lower status and act appropriately.
Frustration boils within Diana as she clenches her dress, feeling the salon's watchful eyes. Hidden behind fans, noble spectators judge Albert's worthiness as the head of the Frisfern house.
Albert maintains his polite composure, offering a humble smile and thanking Matthias for his guidance.
Albert credits his grandfather's strict preparations for his current success managing the Frisfern territory.
Diana observes Albert with quiet pride as he mentions the Emperor's official approval of his measures.
Matthias looks away with a slight frown, begrudgingly acknowledging that Frisfern remains a prosperous land. A ripple of hushed surprise travels through the gathered nobles as the royal conversation continues.
Matthias focuses his sharp blue gaze on the couple, his expression becoming increasingly calculating.
Surrounded by white blossoms, Diana's radiant presence exceeds the rumors circulating throughout the capital.
Matthias takes Diana's hand for a kiss, cryptically mentioning an unusual will left by his predecessor. Albert stands firm as Matthias suggests the former Marquis intended a specific outcome for the inheritance. Matthias's smile widens while he suggests Albert has moved on from his previous commoner love interest.
Diana remains stoic as Matthias probes the temporary nature of her marriage and their hidden past.
The arrival of Prince Erwin creates a sudden, heavy atmosphere of sibling rivalry within the hall.
Matthias's expression hardens into a cold stare as he confronts his brother's sudden presence.
Albert and Diana watch in silent tension as the two princes face off in a struggle.
The group stands together on the marble floor, the social pressure of the salon mounting rapidly.
The focus shifts entirely to Prince Erwin as he makes his formal entry into the group.
Known for his poor relationship with Matthias, Prince Erwin commands immediate attention from the gathered nobles.
Erwin asserts his right to attend, prompting a thinly veiled and sarcastic apology from Matthias.
Diana watches the brothers with deep suspicion, wondering about the true nature of their public exchange.
While nobles gossip about partnerships, Albert remains vigilant, sensing the information networks at play here.
Matthias invites Erwin to join them, his cheerful demeanor masking the biting tension between the brothers.
The nobles settle onto plush chairs to continue their high-stakes social negotiations in the salon. Erwin shifts the topic to rural education, seeking Albert and Diana's perspectives on the distant regions.
Matthias reacts with visible surprise when Diana begins to speak with unexpected authority on the subject.
Diana explains that the educational gap between the capital and rural areas is the primary problem. She proposes implementing night schools for young laborers, leaving the princes stunned by her insight.
Diana acknowledges the idealistic nature of her plan just as Matthias abruptly stands to exit. Claiming sudden urgent business, a flustered Matthias quickly retreats from the couple and his brother.
Erwin offers a charming smile to Diana, amused by her ability to stump his arrogant brother. Prince Bartel observes the scene from his seat, noting Diana's success where Matthias had failed.
Bartel looks at the silver-haired Marquis with a new sense of curiosity and quiet respect.
A thoughtful smile touches Bartel's face as he evaluates the impressive depth of Diana's knowledge. Diana feels a wave of discomfort, wondering if the nobles are trying to rebrand her reputation.
Despite the growing praise, the sudden positive attention from the elite crowd makes Diana feel uneasy.
Albert watches Diana with a protective gaze, sensing her inner turmoil amidst the noble gossip. Albert speaks with firm conviction, reminding everyone present that Diana is the true heart of Frisfern.
Bartel suggests moving to a more private room to discuss the finer details of business.
Touched by Albert's steadfast support, Diana offers him a soft and sincere thank you while blushing. A deep, embarrassed flush spreads across Albert's face as he struggles to downplay his protection.
Surrounded by pink roses, the couple shares a moment of awkward but undeniable affection.
Watching the couple's clumsy romance, Bartel sighs while promising to manage any messes Matthias leaves.
A young woman with braided hair approaches Diana, calling out to her with a friendly expression.
The noblewoman reveals she overheard Diana's brilliant discussion and was deeply impressed by her ideas.
As the woman continues her praise, Albert clears his throat and looks away, visibly flustered.
The group shares a lighthearted moment of laughter while Diana remains endearingly puzzled by the adoration.
Albert, Diana, and the princes discuss the high stakes of their current alliance.
Diana and Lady Lise share a warm, friendly exchange, solidifying their noble bond.
Prince Erwin emphasizes that their joint efforts are meant to ensure everyone's safety.
Tension mounts as Albert and Diana realize the precariousness of their political position.
Diana recognizes that their current discussion borders on treason, heightening the scene's danger.
Prince Erwin questions Albert about the suspicious deaths of his father and grandfather. Albert admits they still lack concrete evidence linking the culprits to his family's deaths.
Prince Erwin suggests that finding physical evidence might not be the only way forward. Albert stands resolutely, stating they will never stop searching for the truth.
Albert asserts his belief that nothing should remain hidden regarding his family's tragic past.
Amused, Prince Erwin admits he appreciates Albert's honesty despite the potential for conflict.
Prince Bartel intervenes, warning Erwin to stop testing Albert's patience and resolve. Shifting the conversation, Prince Erwin prepares to reveal another layer of the mystery.
Diana explains that they have finally identified the source of the village's mysterious funding. Prince Erwin agrees that the timing of these events warrants a much deeper investigation.
A heavy atmosphere settles over the group as they consider their next move.
Albert and Diana prepare for the decisive battlefield of high-stakes capital politics.
Diana's eyes harden with determination as she mentally braces for the coming social war. The sun shines over the grand, snow-covered estate where the next meeting begins.
A servant startles Diana with an urgent message, his sudden appearance sounding a quick rustle.
Diana reads the letter with concern, her expression tightening at the unexpected news.
Diana realizes the summons is specifically for her alone, complicating her safety plans.
Albert protests against Diana entering such a dangerous situation without his direct protection. Determined to stay by her side, Albert insists on accompanying Diana to the meeting.
Prince Erwin discusses the implications of the Queen's sudden and unusual invitation.
Albert and Diana politely acknowledge the prince's concern before heading toward the royal palace.
Arriving at the lush conservatory, Diana formally requests an audience with the Queen.
The Queen sits elegantly amidst flowers, calmly enjoying tea as Diana approaches.
Diana offers a deep, formal curtsy to acknowledge the Queen's power and presence. The Queen begins by mentioning the recent disaster that struck the Frisfern territory. Diana offers her sincere thanks, crediting the royal family's compassion for the region's recovery.
Highlighting Frisfern's agricultural importance, the Queen invites Diana to sit and talk privately.
A maid pours tea as the Queen watches Diana with a sharp, calculating gaze.
Hiding behind her fan, the Queen begins to probe Diana's personal motivations and loyalty.
The Queen reveals she is interested in Diana's personal future, not her noble house.
A chilling silence falls as the Queen states that the divorce papers are filed. Panic grips Diana as a sudden thud sounds, fearing Albert will discover her secrets. The Queen mockingly questions if Diana was hoping Albert would cancel the separation.
Diana realizes the Queen mistakenly believes Albert is the one behind the divorce filing.
Heart-pounding, Diana struggles to hide her inner turmoil from the Queen's piercing eyes.
The Queen cruelly asserts that Albert will never truly return Diana's deep devotion.
Seeking answers, Diana asks if the Queen knew her late father and mother.
The Queen confirms her father was the head of a northern Viscount family.
She recalls Diana's mother was a legendary beauty who captivated high society's elite.
The Queen notes the scandal caused by the mother's marriage to a much older man.
Diana reflects on her own shocking ignorance regarding her family's complicated past.
Distress flashes through Diana as she realizes how little she knows about her mother.
The Queen notes Diana's striking resemblance to her mother, questioning her own past suitors. She specifically mentions a northern count who was once deeply serious about Diana's mother.
Diana is left stunned as she contemplates the identity of the mysterious Count Riken.
The mention of Count Riken triggers a traumatic blurred flashback of Diana being pinned down.
The Queen offers her assistance regarding Count Riken, noting Matthias's growing interest in Diana.
Hiding behind her fan, the Queen warns Diana that the Marquis is merely using her.
Diana stoically maintains that simply serving the Marquis is enough to satisfy her current desires.
The Queen watches Diana with a skeptical, piercing gaze following her sudden declaration of loyalty.
A sharp, echoing clack sounds as the Queen departs, hoping Diana never regrets her choice.
Left alone in the corridor, Diana reflects on the unsettling void of her missing memories.
Her head throbs with sudden pain as fragmented, dark memories of a cold cell surface.
Haunting images of an eye and a blade flash as Diana struggles with her identity. Prince Matthias interrupts her distress, noting her pale complexion and discarding any need for formal greetings. He leans in close, assuming Diana is reeling from his mother's revelation about the divorce.
A red-haired servant from the Frisfern household suddenly arrives to escort Diana away from the prince.
Matthias reluctantly watches her leave, hoping for another meeting, while Diana remains visibly shaken and unwell.
As the servant supports her, Diana feels a strange, haunting sense of familiarity in his presence.
Tears well in Diana's eyes as she gazes at the man, certain she has seen him before.
In a flashback, Mia and a man discuss her stepping back from her role as lover.
Albert stands beside a silver-haired woman, resolving to protect and love her without any further rush.
Surrounded by soft pink roses, Albert and the silver-haired woman share a quiet, lingering moment together.
The scene shifts back to the royal capital during a previous dinner Albert shared with Barkal.
A servant interrupts the meal to deliver news of a discreet summons from the former countess. Albert listens with a serious expression as the messenger conveys the urgency of the countess's request. A gray-haired woman comforts a crying girl while reflecting on the series of disasters they faced.
Albert greets the older woman, offering a sincere apology for his late arrival to their meeting.
Overwhelmed by emotion, the woman weeps while noting Albert's striking resemblance to a man named Fritz.
She apologizes for her outburst, and Albert acknowledges the deep care she once held for his father.
Albert sits with the woman, hearing that his mother was once treated with great kindness there.
The blonde-haired Marquis sits attentively in the grand hall, prepared for a long-overdue family discussion. He directly asked the woman why his mother chose to leave the Marquis household so suddenly. She explains it was because Fritz refused a marriage proposal from the Queen's own younger sister. A flashback shows a young woman pleading desperately, fearing for the life of her unborn child.
Albert is visibly stunned, his face breaking into a cold sweat as the dark truth unfolds. He realizes his mother's silence was born of deep-seated fear rather than a sense of shame.
The woman looks at Albert with heavy sorrow, confirming the immense danger they were truly in. She stares forward with a grim expression, the weight of the past visible in her eyes.
Albert recalls a warning to stay away from that family, realizing he has misunderstood the situation. A large, menacing spider sits upon its web before the estate, symbolizing a dangerous, hidden trap.
Albert watches the woman closely as the web of family secrets continues to tighten around them. The older woman meets his gaze with a somber, knowing look, harboring years of hidden burdens. Albert realizes his mother spent every single day gripped by the fear of an unknown enemy.
He finally understands that her choice to leave the household was a sacrifice to protect him.
Staring out toward the horizon, Albert gains a new, firm understanding of what he must do.
He reflects on the fact that the estate was likely crawling with spies 18 years ago.
Albert contemplates the two factions sending assassins, including the Queen's group seeking the family inheritance.
He identifies Count Riken's faction as the second threat, their ultimate goal being to obtain Diana.
Riken sends assassins after Albert while secretly positioning Marique as a plant to protect Diana's life. Albert concludes that Riken manipulated debts to ensure Marique could successfully infiltrate the distant Frisfern territory.
He resolves to keep Diana from remembering the past, including the time Count Riken assaulted her. Back in the present, Albert sits at his desk with a heavy heart, worrying for Diana.
A brown-haired man bursts into the room, shouting his absolute frustration with Lady Mia's impossible demands.
The brown-haired man vents about how Mia is deliberately toying with his feelings.
Albert listens silently as the man expresses his frustration over Mia's false relationship status.
Furious, the man points accusingly while shouting about Albert's romantic date with Diana.
Albert sighs wearily, suggesting the man should simply reveal his true identity to Collie.
Standing behind Albert, the man notes that the maid doesn't seem very fragile at all.
A pop sound echoes as the man's face lights up at the promised vacation.
A butler bursts in with the urgent news that Diana has returned and fainted. Shocked and silent, Albert and his servant process the gravity of the butler's message.
The butler repeats that Diana was carried in unconscious by palace guards, heightening the alarm.
Guards carry the unconscious Diana into the room as a concerned maid looks on.
Albert rushes to Diana's bedside, frantically wondering if she could have been poisoned. Albert gazes down at the unconscious, silver-haired Diana with a look of profound worry.
Waking up, Diana is met with Albert's immediate questions about her ordeal at the palace.
Diana reflects on the Queen's revelation regarding the divorce, struggling with her fragmented memories.
Apologizing, Diana admits she cannot recall the details of the encounter through the fog. A sharp, painful throb interrupts Diana's thoughts as a dark memory of being pinned surfaces. Albert gently urges Diana not to force herself to remember, noticing her visible distress. Albert informs Diana of an upcoming tea party, though his attendant questions the busy schedule.
Softly, Albert confesses his desire to spend as much time as possible with Diana.
Diana notices Albert's growing overprotectiveness as they walk together toward the awaiting carriage.
Linked arm in arm, the pair stroll through the corridor, their bond deepening despite the danger.
Collie, the brown-haired maid, attends to Diana's silver hair with a cheerful and bright smile.
Collie decides to be blunt, her green eyes sparkling with a determined, happy expression.
Looking in the mirror, Diana confirms her feelings while Collie beams behind her. A warm